Good evening. The City Council will come to order. Everyone please rise. We'll be led in prayer by our President Pro Tem Joe DeLucia, please.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all our deliberations. Give us the strength and wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that peace and harmony will mark all our proceedings and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of your community. Amen.
Amen. Alderwoman Tracy Berto, please, the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I know.
That's the key.
It is. Good evening, everyone. To begin, I would like to start by asking for a motion to accept the minutes from the meetings on November 7th and 21st of November 2020, please. Motion by Alderman Wilson, second Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, the roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gold?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Proclamation, PAL, 50 years.
This evening, we have a proclamation to put into the public record to honor those who have worked with the Police Athletic League for half a century, and I'm going to do it at the dais to my left. Do we have representatives of PAL with us this evening? We had requested. Yes, please, come up. Good, how are you? It's nice to see you again. So, I don't know how many of you as parents used to chase your kids around to PAL soccer leagues and all kinds of other endeavors across the city. But for 50 years, they've made a real difference in the lives of young people here in the community, and they continue to do so. And we just thought it was appropriate and right that we acknowledge the fact that they've been with us for 50 years, and that's the purpose of this proclamation. Whereas the Norwich Police Athletic League, or PAL, is a youth athletics and activities organization run by a group of dedicated volunteers. And whereas Norwich PAL has been active in the community for 50 years and have had thousands of children go through their programs, their first meeting was January 24th, 1972, and they incorporated in March of 1973. And whereas PAL is governed by the Board of Directors, Todd Girton, President, John Cormier, Vice President, Don Sikorsky, Secretary, and John Zenowitz, Treasurer. And whereas the philosophy of PAL Sports is to teach the youth to engage in clean, fair competition that promotes individual character, sportsmanship, and teamwork. And whereas PAL in the beginning had boxing, at the end of '73 became affiliated with AAU Boxing, then went to tournaments starting in 1974. Boys basketball had 6 teams, girls basketball had 45 participants, baseball had junior major league, 8 teams, golf had 81 participants, tennis had 12 participants. And whereas joining PAL, there are typically over 1,300 children involved individually with all the sports from ages 5 to 14 years of age. And whereas PAL is made up of a group of individual volunteers within Norwich that care about our youth and want the best for them, the Rose City thanks them for their volunteering their time and for caring about our youth. Now therefore, I, Mayor Peter Robert Nystrom, and Norwich City Council Pro Tem Joseph A. DeLucia, on behalf of the Norwich City Council and the citizens of the City of Norwich, do hereby congratulate Norwich Police Athletic League and their board on their impressive record and on their 50 years of service to the Norwich youth through sports. Dated this 5th day of December 2022. Signed by myself and President Pro Tem. Thank you so much, and thank you for all that you bring to the community.
Second reading and action on the below ordinances previously presented November 21st. Number 1, an ordinance amending Section 8-17 of the Norwich Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for a motion to bring this to the floor. There's also been a request for a presentation to be made at this time. I didn't know about it till just now, but I would first must ask, is there any objection to such a presentation? Alderwoman Stacy Gould.
Who has prepared this presentation?
President Pro Tem Lucia.
And what is the content of this presentation?
As I was told just before the meeting began, it's in reference to the ordinance that is about to be on the floor, 8-17.
And we weren't given advance notice of this because?
I don't know. I don't know. That's the request. Alderman Wilson.
So are you asking for that in the motion, or is that just a request?
Let's just put it in the motion. Yeah, then it's on the record. It's the quickest way to deal with it.
I'll bring it to the floor.
Motion is to bring this to the floor for discussion and include a presentation. Is there a second, please? Alderwoman Berto. Is there further discussion on the motion? I just have a question, the approximate length.
Approximately 20 minutes. However, I'm covering both ordinances in one presentation in the interest of saving time. No problem.
Okay, a motion is on the floor and seconded. Is there further discussion or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
No.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
No.
5-2.
Motion passes 5-2. So the floor is yours, sir.
Mayor, given the gravity of these two ordinances, I'd like to stand while I present.
It's your choice, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
How's that?
Excuse me, how about the dais? Would that be better?
Then you're going to have to let me, oh, actually. Is that better? Good evening. We have heard quite a lot of public comment, both at the public safety meeting and at the public hearing for ordinance 8-17 and 8-18. I would like to take this time to provide the community with some information of the what and the why of what is contained in these two ordinances. Right, the goal of these two ordinances is to provide the highest degree, provide the highest degree of fire suppression and protection to the city using all of the assets
of the Norwich Fire Service in the most effective manner possible. My objectives tonight, threefold: to educate city residents and business owners and the council of current issues within the Norwich Fire Service, to demonstrate the ways in which these ordinances address some of the current issues within the Norwich Fire Service, and to present evidence that refutes the statements and claims that the status quo in the Norwich Fire Service is sufficient. Recent evidence of a lack of fiscal controls can be found in the two examples that I'd like to present first. In 2017, the Fire Service received $3.2 million in fire apparatus for 4 of the 5 volunteer departments without the benefit of a cost analysis or any type of deployment analysis. In fact, the purchase and assignment of the 5 new fire trucks directly contradicted the findings in the previous 3 studies of the Norwich Fire Service regarding the overabundance of apparatus as quoted in the George Paul study in 1989. The 5 trucks went $400,000 over the $2.8 million allocation, and the Anik and Tafel trucks went more than another $20,000 over budget for dealer-added options at the request of the respective volunteer departments without prior approval of the council. In 2018, the Tafel Fire Chief initiated a building addition to the city-owned firehouse on Providence Street without prior permission from the council. Even though he procured a grant for most of the estimated cost, he also exceeded his authority by obligating the city and its taxpayers for the remaining actual costs of the project, escalation, which is a nice word of saying inflation, and numerous cost overruns. That project went $117,000, nearly 47% over budget, without a satisfactory explanation. In 2019, at the request of the Public Safety Committee, which I was a member of at the time, the city manager led an internal work group consisting of the comptroller, the NFD fire chief, and the volunteer fire chiefs. This group was tasked with 2 foci: to determine 5 fire apparatus to be decommissioned and removed from the city's fire service, and 2, to create a replacement schedule for the remaining fire apparatus projected over the next 20 years. The effort and the resulting report was an abject failure. The VFD chiefs refused to relinquish a single piece of apparatus. The superintendent of fleet maintenance was excluded from these discussions, and the report demanded 6 new fire trucks. It became clear to us that the city needed an outside expert to help chart a path forward. So we commissioned a fire study. At the cost of $81,000 in 2020, the council voted to hire the McGrath Consulting Group, and their report was received by the council in February 2021. This is the latest in a string of at least 4 previous studies of the fire service and fire apparatus dating back to 1969 and includes the 1989 George Paul study. In addition to the time and resources, allocated to these studies, approximately $200,000 of taxpayer funds have been expended on all of the fire studies to date without significant improvement to the delivery of fire services to the community. Nonetheless, the McGrath report cited several concerns. The first was the concerns of governing officials is improving the relationship and teamwork of these fire organizations from what is perceived to be a troubled relationship between career and volunteer. Their second concern, there are 2 issues that are to be considered top priorities: dispatch and the integration of service providers, but not consolidation. They said, if the core belief of all 6 departments is what is best for the individual needing the service, then every service provider will separate what is best for the person needing help from what is best for their department or themselves. Seems to be a delay here. There we go. And lastly, they said it will be incumbent upon political leaders to leave Democratic and Republican ideologies behind and instead have the fortitude to make difficult decisions. Colleagues, that is where we are tonight. The key recommendations from the McGrath report were set by priority and then categorized. Priority 1 considered to be urgent. First was incident reporting, and this was all of the data that needed to be collected so that we could make data-driven decisions, and that is all underway as part of the dispatch center upgrade. The fire chief's responsibility. Understanding the legal requirements of who is actually the responsible and liable person on the fire scene at an emergency. That is all under discussion by the fire chief's working group and the city manager, and I know that Corporation Counsel has also weighed in on that. Training. All right, all departments must use the same training curriculum and regularly train on standardized procedures and so on. Okay, that is ongoing with the standard operating procedure revisions, and there is some partial implementation on the training piece, which is, again, another step in the right direction. Fire scene response assignments. Response to emergencies should be based on proximity and adequate resources to mitigate the emergency, regardless if the individuals providing that service are career or volunteer. The run card issue that has been on our agenda with public safety for over a year and a half is evidence to the contrary of progress in this area, but is addressed as part of tonight's ordinances. Their priority 2, which they categorized as pressing, were dispatch console and equipment, dispatch radio systems, dispatch response plans, and dispatch data analysis. This is all underway. Fire chiefs meetings. All chiefs should meet quarterly for an opportunity to discuss mutual concerns and/or other opportunities for improvements. The fire chiefs and the city manager meet almost monthly for this purpose based on action of the council after we received the report. Standardization. Okay, this is again the standard operating procedures that I know that the chiefs and the city manager have been working on for the last 2 years. Standardization. The Norwich Fire Department should respond automatically with a single engine in conjunction with the district's fire department in which the emergency is occurring, as prescribed in the automatic aid ordinance known to us tonight as Ordinance 8-17. So the fire chiefs have been having meetings, and we heard some comment about those meetings during public safety and during the public hearing. And one of the claims was, we've been working for 10 months on automatic aid. That was a direct quote from the chief of the Laurel Hill Fire Department. Fact is this. According to the city manager's reports to public safety, in the 21 months since the McGrath report, no serious work was done on automatic aid before June of this year, and no draft recommendation was made before September of this year. That begged the question, what took so long to put the safety of the public before everything else? Here we go. So here's the evidence that I'm citing. You can see that the City Council acted in March of 2021. The chiefs had their first meeting in May of 2021, and I've made some notes here. Automatic aid was raised as an issue, but there was no discussion or action. Interestingly, the mayor and Alderwoman Gould were invited and attended, even though neither of them were members of the Public Safety Committee, and both of them are members of volunteer fire department. We heard a lot about political motivations here. This suggests political involvement right from the get-go. Additionally, the NFD chief suggested a meeting with public safety members. No such invitation has ever been extended to the committee members. And in June of 2021, the chiefs committed to drafting an automatic aid policy and to revise their run cards, which was followed by 12 months of inaction, delay, roadblocking. 57% of the chiefs' meetings had no auto aid action at all. Fast forward a year to June of this year, the chiefs questioned when automatic aid would be implemented because they expected a July 1 implementation, even though they had not completed a draft recommendation at all. This implies that they expected us to act. In July, their auto aid discussion centered around sending a full second alarm to all fires. There was no discussion on retones or response to city-owned buildings, which were both identified as issues of concern by the members of public safety. In August, an automatic aid discussion centered on dispatch controls. Well, dispatch is under the authority of the police chief, not the fire chiefs. In September, a policy was reviewed and finalized, and it was agreed upon on a November 1 start date. On November 2nd, the volunteer chiefs withdrew their support. Now, Chief Ibers and Tactical Chief Tim Jenks said that they are not against automatic aid. Quoted in the paper, Claire Bissett is here tonight to tell us that, I'm sure she could confirm that they said this. And they may have said it, and I believe that they said it. And I believe that maybe they believe it. But behind the scenes, some concerning things were happening. First, Chief Jenks sent angry emails to the city manager after chiefs' meetings to undermine the ongoing work of the chiefs on automatic aid, and I feel to sabotage the initiative. This past summer, Chief Jenks led a meeting at his own firehouse and asked for a membership vote to refuse to adhere to any policy or ordinance regarding automatic aid, and that vote passed. Additionally, Chief Jenks allowed members of his department to organize and execute a plan to prevent the November meeting of the Public Safety Committee. That has an eerie feeling to it. Lastly, Jenks allowed members of his department to organize a closed-door November meeting for firefighters only to plan efforts to derail the automatic aid ordinance. Facebook is a wonderful thing. Less than 1 day after automatic aid took effect, the volunteer chiefs wrote a letter of protest and withdrawal in response to the proposed ordinance. The only tangible, I believe, this is my belief, the only tangible and credible explanation for this action is their misplaced perception of complete autonomy, which they cite in the letter, which is in front of you, and their fear that an ordinance has the force of city law once adopted by the council, because ordinances cannot be ignored or dismissed. So, to respond to a few of the claims, not all, but a few of the claims in the chief's letter, I'll start with this one. Automatic aid does not need to be an ordinance. Well, with the previous slide in mind, the strongest argument for both ordinances tonight are the chief's own words in the withdrawal letter. The letter is evidence that without the force of city law, the VFD chiefs can and will use automatic aid as leverage anytime they are unhappy with council action. The charter is crystal clear. The council is the authority that sets policy by ordinance and resolution. Continuing on this point, the policy that the VFD chiefs developed only addresses one of the three concerns surrounding emergency response: responding to structure fires. The VFD policy ignores what is best for the individual needing service in the instance of retones, which are alarms that are not answered by the VFDs. And the VFD policy also ignores the city's responsibility to protect city-owned infrastructure, like our schools, 24/7, 365. Their next claim was that the proposed ordinance violates the city charter. In item number 1 in the chief's letter, the chapter section and subsection cited talks about their authority over their own 501c3, the fact that we cannot disband them, and other protections they have under the charter. But it ignores and conveniently omits the key phrase that says that that is all true except in case of emergency as defined in the rules and regulations adopted by the council. Furthermore, our corporate power stated in Chapter 3, Section 1, Subsection 11 of the Charter also states that the city has, and I quote, the power to organize, maintain, and regulate a fire department, provide the necessary apparatus for extinguishing fires, and do all other things necessary or desirable to protect the city from fires. That's us. The next claim was that the proposed ordinance is not cost effective. Well, automatic aid guarantees the most effective and efficient response to every emergency everywhere within the boundaries of Norwich. Automatic aid does not, however, add any paid fire personnel to the minimum staffing levels of NFD. And it does not transfer a single dime of tax burden from the CCD to the TCD. I would say to improve a system for free is nothing but cost effective. The last claim that they made, and I want to start off on a positive note on this, is that there are no deficiencies with the present delivery of services, or that none are known. The fact of the matter is, the 6 departments of the fire service respond to thousands of emergency calls each year in much appreciated service to the city. But the system is not perfect. And for the record, colleagues, I have said this time and again, and you have all heard me say this. But automatic aid strengthens the fire service, and I believe extends the viability of the VFDs, because no matter what, help is always on the way. Because no one worries about the mill rate when their child is choking or when their spouse or parent has a medical issue, and no one cares about the name on the responding fire trucks when their home or their business catches fire. Now let's talk about some of the examples that are driving what we're voting on tonight. Back in 2009, a fatal fire on Lafayette Street, Yannick was dispatched to a house fire and requested help from EGP, Taffel, Laurel Hill, Basra, and the Mohegan tribe. And time and time again, I'll point it out here, Laurel Hill and the Mohegan tribe drive right past NFD fire headquarters on their way to these kinds of calls. Why? The elderly female resident was conscious and called 911 to say that she was trapped, but by the time the first crews arrived, she was unconscious and did not survive. NFD, which was staffed and closer to the scene than any other department, only 1.5 miles away, was not requested and is not on the Lafayette Street run card other than for special circumstances. And here's just a little of the imagery that just drives home the point that automatic aid, if you read the ordinance, automatic aid would have put NFD on the scene in under 4 minutes. To continue, firefighter Mayday on Harlan Place. Taftville VFD was dispatched to a house fire with reports of people trapped inside, and then while fighting the fire, 2 firefighters fell through the floor and were also trapped. Mohegan Tribe Fire Department was on automatic aid, and the on-scene command also requested additional help from Basra. Basra's ladder arrived 17 minutes later. NFD, only 4 minutes away, was not requested. This type of operational risk for which the city is liable is unacceptably deficient. Fire at Kelly Middle School. Taftville was dispatched to Kelly Middle School for a fire alarm. Upon arrival, responders reported smoke and that the sprinkler system had been activated, and then requested 2 additional engines from Yannick. The sprinkler system continued to discharge water for 45 minutes after the fire was extinguished because the responders did not know how to shut it off and chose not to ask for help. Thousands of dollars of unnecessary damage was done as a result. Auto aid for city-owned assets would automatically put NFD personnel on the scene, and I'm sure they would have been happy to show the responders how to turn off the sprinkler system.
You need to summarize. You've reached the time you talked about, and in regards to the Kelly Fire Department rolls at all schools, that's already automatic. So if they didn't show up, according to what you're saying, I can't answer that. But they automatically go to schools. You don't need a new policy to say that, sir.
So, A, I believe that your interruption is on the point, is out of order, and secondly, if
You're out of time.
no, sir.
There are many people here to speak about other matters than satisfying your needs. You asked for 20 minutes, you've had 20 minutes. Just summarize, please. It's not a hit list that you want to present out here. That's not our function.
Mayor, first of all, your statement is inaccurate. The paid department only responds when school is in session. Secondly, I am granted as much time as the council chooses to provide.
It was 20 minutes, sir. That was in the motion. You're not overtaking the whole night. There are other matters before the public here tonight. You're exceeding any authority you think you have.
I request
Alderman
additional
Wilson would like to
leave
be
from the
recognized.
council. Thank you.
Thank you. The only thing that I ask, I know that these issues are charged. We've got quite a few of them on our agenda. The only thing that I ask is let's just be respectful, but also the part of the audience being respectful in that regards too. I understand we can agree to disagree. For me, when we talk about it in the pledge, compassion, respect, that's all that I ask, that we treat each other with respect and allow the matter to be played out. Thank you.
Your comments are good. Thank you for adding them in. Respect should also be for those here listening.
So at this time, Mayor, I would like to request additional time from the council.
I would say no. I think that's a request out of order. It would have been better if you had warned myself, the city manager, and anyone else ahead of time before we got here to this meeting that you wanted to monopolize the entire night.
I move to appeal the ruling of the chair.
Go right ahead. You need a second. Alderman Wilson. Roll call, please. I don't think we need to debate that.
Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
No.
Alderman Neuendorf?
No.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
No.
That's 4-3.
Motion passes 4-3. Do you have a new
I have a
time frame you'd
point
like
of-
to share with us?
I will say that out of respect for your concern, I will summarize at this point.
Thank you.
Excuse me, but I didn't come here tonight to listen to this song, and I don't think everyone else here came to listen to this song. So, out of respect, if you can wrap this up.
Mayor Nystrom.
If we
point of order,
could-
please.
Not start taking comments from the audience. I do appreciate everyone's concern at this time. But if he's going to summarize, he'll summarize.
How
Thank
long is
you.
the summary going to take? Are we going to keep disparaging our volunteer fire service for another 5 minutes? Or are we going to do it in 1 minute? Because nobody talks about the fact that the volunteer fire service in the city of Norwich saves millions of dollars a year, and nobody, not one of these chiefs, not one of these volunteers out here ever goes to a call and says, well, let's see how we can screw this up tonight.
Pro Tem, please summarize.
Thank you. So I will say that it is never my intent to disparage anyone from the floor of the council. However, when the chiefs and their representatives sign their name to a statement, they should expect a response, even if it includes a rebuttal. So I will go to their final claim that was made, that Joe DeLucia never talked to us, and this was about these upcoming ordinances. And my rebuttal is this, that I met with Chief Ibersh upon his taking command of the Yannick Fire Department, where much of the conversation centered on automatic aid. And in subsequent talks with the chief, he assured me, don't worry, we'll get auto aid done. On at least 2 occasions, I spoke with Chief Milton about the McGrath report recommendations to implement automatic aid, including one conversation where he said that he regrets not calling for aid sooner at the Access to Health fire. And I applaud him for that because it indicates a willingness to reflect and learn and adapt to change. Then why sign the letter to withdraw from automatic aid? Here is the most important point. The mayor admonished me about keeping secrets and not being a good communicator. While he holds secret meetings in the city manager's office with the chiefs without letting the chairman of public safety know, without letting the rest of the committee know, and this is nothing short of just political interference. But more importantly, because it's the chiefs I want to talk about and what they said in their letter, that I don't talk to them. When it was suggested that I be invited to speak to the chiefs at their most recent meeting, and for those of you who were watching, you saw that was reported on the floor of the council at our last meeting, and Alderwoman Gould even went further to question it. Here's what really happened. When that suggestion was made, Chief Jenks pushed away from the table and said, I don't want to talk to that bleeping guy. That might be the case, my friends. However, communication is a two-way street. Now, let's go to the successes. Let's go to where everyone...
Is this a summary or not?
It is.
It doesn't seem like one.
It is. Well, let's go to the evidence of success in Bolduc Lane.
This is not a summary.
Right? In the first week of automatic aid, in the very first week, Tafel and Engine 2 were dispatched to Bolduc Lane for a report of a structure fire, and you see it there on the screen. It was cooking. Okay? Engine 2 arrived with a full crew more than 2 minutes before any other apparatus and began attacking the fire, as they should. As additional apparatus crews arrived, as the ordinance calls for. A coordinated attack prevented the heavy fire on the rear porch from causing significant damage to the roof and interior of this building. In fact, this is a ringing success for automatic aid, happened in the first week. Why would we not approve this, right? The problem is the system. There are systemic problems with the way that we respond to emergencies, particularly fires. And based on those systemic issues, they're based in the run cards and the dispatch order and the way that the system is designed, and the ordinance corrects that once and for all. So to get to my summary of conclusions, Mayor, I will say that the citizens deserve the right to expect that the Norwich Fire Service will respond to emergencies in the most efficient and effective manner possible. The technology issue is not my fault. Silo mentality in a hybrid fire service like ours works to the detriment of the citizens and their property. The current procedures and practices put the community and its first responders at unnecessary risk. The council is the ultimate authority regarding the delivery of fire suppression and protection services citywide. The proposed ordinances leave room for policy refinement as recommended by the city manager, and the proposed ordinances maintain the current fire tax structure. And with that, sir, I give back the floor.
At this time, the motion before us is whether the passage of this ordinance takes place. Members of council have the right to discuss their own opinions going forward. I would ask you, though, to keep in mind the amount of time that has transpired and that the other issues that are before us that people care about, they'd like to be heard as well. That is not an ask to limit your debate, but just be on point, please. And I'll conclude my own comments as far as your presentation with the number of errors that you demonstrated. I will point them out. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Alderwoman Gould.
I'd like to say that we've had some very disparaging comments and accusations made by the volunteer fire chiefs and their decisions. And I think any chief who would like to defend themselves, although that's a terrible word to have to use, to set the record straight maybe is a better way, because I'm disgusted with this whole business. But if any of the fire chiefs would like to come forward to refute any of the facts that have been presented here, I would like to give them the opportunity to do so at this time.
You putting that in the form of a motion to suspend our rules to allow for that? Because I think the only way to do that is through that process.
Then I will ask for a formal motion to suspend the rules and give the chiefs an opportunity, if they would like, to come to the podium.
Is there a second? Second by Alderman Grant Neuendorf. Is there discussion on the motion? President Pro Tem.
I have 2 quick points on the motion. First, that I believe it to be inappropriate from the standpoint of the fact that the council and the Public Safety Committee listened to over 2 hours of public comment, uninterrupted, over the course of 2 meetings. If Alderwoman Gould has specific questions for specific chiefs on specific issues, then she is free to do that as we permit in our rules. But to reopen what is de facto public comment on an issue that is clearly under the authority of the council is inappropriate at this time. Secondly, I would say that you, Mayor, just admonished me strongly and inappropriately for a third time about the use of time because more important issues that the community has come out for are before us. And now you're permitting this. I find that inconsistent at best.
You're looking for a response? It's real brief.
I'm not asking for a response. That was my comment under discussion.
Is there further discussion on the motion? Alderman Wilson.
Can I ask, just easy question, how many of the chiefs actually want to come forward to say something? I mean,
I can't answer that. No one knew this presentation was coming forward. It was withheld from members of this caucus. I had no idea about it. Perhaps if there's more transparency in the presentation, if we knew ahead of time, they would have known they were going to be attacked.
So I'm asking for those in the room, of the ones in the room, by kind of a show of hands, who wants to come forward to say something?
Don't see.
I mean, I mean,
No, if you're going to speak, it needs to be part of the record.
so I will say, if it's one or two, listen, I'm open to giving people an opportunity, so, you know,
see one.
as long as we allow that opportunity out, I'm fine with that.
Well, the motion's before us.
Mr. Mayor,
Hold 1 second. We have to have a vote on the motion to suspend our rules, so
Correct.
that's still before us. Alderman Singh.
yeah, I guess if that was my question, are we gonna follow the motion and vote on that
Well-
before anybody comes in, or we
Yes.
can just treat everybody as a part of the discussion?
We're going to vote on the motion
Okay,
before we do anything.
sure.
It does help to see who's here and who's not. Is there further discussion on the motion to suspend the rules to allow for comment from a chief?
Nope.
None, roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Chief Ibers?
Good evening, everyone. Bill Ibers, Chief of the Anna Fire Department, Fitchville Road in Yantic, Connecticut. President Pro Tem's comments tonight do not deserve a response. They are very one-sided, somewhat misguided, and again, very opinionated in just one direction. So I'm speaking for the three chiefs in the back of the room, and this is going to be the level of our response.
Thank you. Are there any other chiefs who wish to be heard at this time? I see no one else in responding. Okay, thank you. A motion, please, to return to the meeting. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderman Roberto. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. The matter before is the passage of ordinance amending Section 8-17 of the Norwich Code of Ordinances. Is there further discussion at this time? Alderman Singh.
Thank you. A quick question. I don't know if city manager or any fire chief can answer. So November 1st, auto aid policy was enforced, and November 2nd, support was withdrawn. So what is status of that current policy that we have?
It's my understanding, while the letter was in fact submitted, that they are still participating, which was always their intent. And just for the record, in spite of what was said, the letter came about because they learned about a proposed ordinance draft after an agenda-setting meeting took place. At no time were they included any of the preliminary discussions to draft the ordinance. And that's really the point of contention. Why wouldn't they include it? They were already meeting every month and working on an automatic aid policy for 10 months. Why did the author of this feel it was fit to not include them. It's just, it's not transparent. So why aren't we operating in the eyes of the public? I think that's a fair question. I think what you're pointing out is valid, sir. You still have the floor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion? Alderman Gould.
I will not be supporting ordinance 817 or 818. Not because automatic aid, the automatic aid policy isn't a good idea. Automatic aid is necessary and essential when the circumstances warrant it. None of the chiefs here in the city of Norwich are so cavalier, so egotistical, or so irresponsible. And that's what Alderman DeLucia would have you believe, that they're irresponsible, that they don't care about the citizens, the businesses, or the visitors to the city of Norwich. That they believe that working alone to mitigate an emergency situation is best for the individual needing service. No city council should legislate operational procedures. And that's exactly what this automatic aid policy is. It's an operational procedure. And despite what Alderman DeLucia would like to think, the council is not the ultimate authority. None of these people sitting to my left or right have served one day in any volunteer fire department. They have the ultimate authority. They don't know jack about the fire service and what it's like to get out in the middle of the night and go put out a fire. So we should not be legislating operational procedures. And that's what automatic aid is, an operational procedure. This policy that we have should be a living document, moving, with the ability to adjust through experience, as resources change, as situations evolve, as time change. Will we be proposing next an ordinance for the operational procedures at the police department? Will we be directing the chief of police on how to deploy police officers to a variety of emergency calls in the name of what's best for the individual needing the service? Or maybe we're going to have an ordinance proposed to provide direction for the operational procedures of the Director of Public Works, as to which streets we should plow and how many times we should plow them, or what roads to pave, or what parks to mow, and who gets mowed first and who's second, because we're the ultimate authority on that. But we all know that's not going to happen. Section 817 of our ordinances says that the chief executive officer may, in the case of serious emergency, permit the paid fire company maintained in and for the city consolidated district to respond to alarms outside the limits of the district, and that volunteer companies are to respond to alarms in the consolidated district. So those two sentences, two lines there say, they need us, we go. We need you, you come. I mean, how much more simpler could that be? But now, we have this, all of this. We've gone from this to all of this. This is not a mirror image of the existing ordinance. As Alderman DeLucia stated, oh, this is a mirror image. No, it's not. There's no contradiction in the current ordinance versus the proposed ordinance. The current ordinance is simple. And I'll state it again. The volunteers needs the paid department, they come. If the paid department needs the volunteers, they come. And that's what works best for the individual needing the service. And I'll yield the floor.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there are several things that, we also need to consider here. And for me, it's the big part of, I've talked to several chiefs. I've gone through just a hair of what they go through training. So I understand the risk that they put themselves in every single time they answer to a call. Is every single person up here on the council going to know every single job or the breadth of what each department in the city does to its maximum potential? Absolutely not. Do we have some of us had the opportunity to have a snapshot of it? Absolutely. I think every single colleague up here can say the one piece that they respect the job that each and every volunteer paid member of every company in the city does. We've made some tough decisions over the last year or so that have changed the dynamic in not just the fire service, but other departments. Recreation looks a little different. Public Works looks a little different. And so, to sit up here and say operationally things aren't always the same when we pass a budget and other things and we approve some of those changes from the city manager, that means operations look a little different. The part I think that we have to look at is whether this passes or not. The conversation and the dialogues civilly still must happen. Changes are going to be made and recommended. We still have to do it. Tonight's not the end-all, be-all of our job as council members, as members of fire departments, as members of the public. We still have, even though this ordinance is here, we're gonna have to evaluate it. We're gonna have to see what works and what doesn't work. But I think when you look at it, sometimes change is tough. It's gonna be tough. It's hard. We're used to certain things being certain ways, but I think you give it a chance. Give it an opportunity. In the ordinance itself, it allows for tweaks to be made, and we take that opportunity. But again, I think each and every one of us up here respects the job that everyone does. And again, there are tough decisions that are always made, and this is one of those tough decisions that we have to do, and it's never easy for anyone. But the one hope that I have for individuals, regardless of the outcome, is that we continue the dialogue to make every part of our city better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion at this time? Alderman Singh.
Thank you. I actually echo the sentiments of Alderman Wilson. The one thing I didn't like going through this exercise of this ordinance and learning about it and listening to everyone's comments, that we need to keep politics on the side when it comes to the safety of the people. Another thing is the way picture has been portrayed, that seems like there are few people who don't respect volunteer service. I think that'll be wrong as well, because I respect them. I deal with them. Some of them are my customer as well. I meet them on daily basis. So people understand, and I respect you as well, Alderwoman Gold. If you cannot see that over the years of 12 years, that there is a respect for volunteer fire department in the city, then it's very unfortunate if we kind of project that issue. But I do see point in automatic aid being in a form of ordinance, because we cannot show our protest by opting out or taking our support from these kind of things which are very close to public safety. So I am in support of this, and I hope everybody works hand in hand. Actually, it's hand in gloves. That's things to say. And I hope nobody push council to the point that council have to take action in a form of ordinance. I wish fire studies were implemented in a faster fashion, and I hope there's still a lot of work that fire chiefs have to do all together to implement fire study. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there further comment? Pro Tem.
So, and I promise I will keep this brief. I know that the volunteer departments and their chiefs and their officers and their members feel disrespected. They feel that I've been trouncing around in their backyard, and I'm sorry that they feel that way. However, I'm a data-driven individual, and when I look at data and I ask questions about the data and those questions are not answered, then I start to dig. And when I dig down on issues like, why do we call for help from a department like Colchester 20-something minutes away when we have a paid department fully staffed that is 5 minutes away, and there is no answer to that? I'm going to continue to ask, and I'm going to continue to dig. When we call for, I promise that I won't get into a story, Mayor, right, because there's a lot of detail here, but when there's a fire at Panema Mill Apartments, the home of 400 individuals, and instead of calling for help from Greenville, we call for help from Jewett City. That takes 15 minutes. It took 15 minutes for them to get to the firehouse, staff the truck, and then another 12 minutes to get here. I want to know why. What logic? Why does that not prompt deeper questioning? And yes, a little bit of questioning the autonomy to make those decisions. This is not about operational needs or operational interference. This is about saying that no matter what, to every single citizen and business owner, no matter what, we will send all of the resources necessary if you have an emergency. In spite of what Alderwoman Gould says, that is not always the case, and it is not the case many times by design. On many of the volunteer fire department's run cards, their dispatch order, the Bible of who goes to what, the city of Norwich is listed under a fourth alarm or even further down than that. That means that every single apparatus in the volunteer departments, not just in the city of Norwich, but Bosworth and Baltic and Lisbon and everywhere else that touches our border, they would all get dispatched first before the paid department. There is no good answer to that. There is no reason for that. And that is exactly why it was a priority 1 recommendation that we talk about sending the adequate resources, and it was a priority 2 recommendation that we send an engine from the paid department to every single emergency. This is not Joe DeLucia stomping around in your flower garden. This is a set of very smart people who looked at our system and said, you can do better. And tonight, we start making it better. I respect the heck out of you folks. You don't believe it, and you don't want to hear it. I understand, and I can take it, but I do. And I'm thankful, not just for the money that you saved the city, but for the fact that you put your butts on the line every single day. But if the system can be better, we should be doing whatever we have to do to make it better. And 2 years, we've waited long enough for it to happen. That's why we have these ordinances, and the ordinances are no surprise because we've been talking about what was going to need to change and what the council needed to do to create change. So I will take the heat, and I will take the abuse. Lord knows that I have for the last month, and I can take it because I know that I'm doing what's best for for the city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, I have questions for you, and that will define my response. You worked with the chiefs for 10 months, all 6 of them at the table. Is that not correct?
Most of the time, it was, most of the time, it was always 6. Occasionally, there was less.
Employment issues, things like that. I get it.
Yeah.
The call was at the end of 10 months to issue an administrative automatic aid policy, and it was to go into effect November 1st. I learned that at the agenda setting the day before that, Halloween, as it turned out. And just for the record, at no time have I cited on any of the chiefs' meetings with the city manager, in spite what the pro tem has told you. I've not been part of those. And that was by design, because when politicians get engaged, you generally have problems. So no one was permitted in those meetings. Getting back to the policy of administrative aid, you didn't propose an ordinance at this time. You went administrative through your office. Why did you do that?
I was going in my track to get as close as we can to a automatic aid policy. And at that point, I was focusing on that rather than the ordinance.
Was it the intent to analyze the data collected over the 6-month period that had been defined in those discussions?
Certainly, we were going to look to make sure that what we had agreed to was functioning correctly.
And is that a direct result of the fact that this was new? And that it required the buy-in of all parties, which in fact was realized? Is that not correct?
It's definitely a new procedure that hasn't been implemented before November 1st. So there's 3 or 4 parts to it. There's the volunteer response, then of course there's the CCD response, and then there's the dispatch response. So they all have to be coordinated and making sure they're working in a joint effort.
It's my understanding that the 6-month was a window of opportunity to learn, to improve. Is that not correct?
Well, it was, and it also, I would be straight that it was a way that the volunteers felt that if there were changes to be made, we wouldn't be locked into it. And either way, what we were doing, we weren't going to lock it in. If there's ways to make it better, then we were going to do that. If there were things that weren't going forward, then we would do that. I'm not sure that the ordinance prohibits us from doing that,
It does not.
but
He has the floor, please.
But I would say that I'm in favor of automatic aid. I think it can work. There is, has been, not now so much, direct resistance for it. I think most the chiefs that I worked with over the last year were coming around to the point where they were accepting it as the new dispatch format. So we had made a lot of progress. You know, it could go backwards too, though, of course. You know, I'm not going to be here forever, and if it's not crystal clear to the new manager or the new council, then it could fall by the wayside to a certain extent. So they're looking at the kind of the legacy of the automatic aid to make sure it has continuity.
Thank you. I'll summarize right now. They were sitting at the table, they were meeting every month, they came up with a draft, implemented through the city manager's office, all ready to roll, And then this ordinance shows up out of the blue. But only one of the chiefs was at the table during the draft of the ordinance, and I guess that's the rub. I'd certainly feel that I was left out of the discussion if I'd been in all the discussions with all the chiefs and then learn later on, kind of at the tail end, that there's other meetings taking place and we're not made aware of it. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of all the effort. Yes, an ordinance can be amended, an ordinance can be repealed as well. But the bottom line is, this is not the way to do it, not last minute, just like your presentation was last minute. That's not transparent, that's not open government, that's backroom politics. And I'll repeat that again, because that's exactly what it is. I don't know why you felt you couldn't tell them you were going to draft one. You could have included them. You approached it with a very narrow view. And that's why we're here tonight, spending this time. And I think it's a shame. It really is. Call the roll, please. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Alderwoman Gould.
There's a lot of talk tonight from members of this council about collaboration and cooperation, working together. But these proposed ordinances were never an agenda item in 24 months at a public safety meeting. Never were they, any items for discussion for next month's meeting? Nobody ever talked about an ordinance. Nobody discussed this with our public safety complex partners, as Alderman DeLucia likes to call the people who come and speak at the Public Safety Committee meeting. This entire process has been utterly disrespectful and egregious to the volunteer chiefs and their departments. Collaboration and cooperation should be the council's standard operating procedure. But they didn't want to hear from their public safety complex partners. It's an us against them once again. It's a wall instead of a bridge. And if we're data-driven, then why wasn't there any mention of a fire on Central Avenue where a firefighter had to be thrown out a window? Or where there's never a mention of any fire, see, and I'm doing it now, where the paid department went and the career and the volunteer fire department sat and watched the building burn downtown. But there was no mention about that. And you're okay with taking the abuse. You wouldn't have had to take the abuse that you claim that you're taking had you been transparent about this process. You put Chief Montoya really in a rotten place. I hope, Chief Montoya's words, I hope that they can see that the proposed ordinances are the result of the efforts of council members and not the work of myself. I was aware of the drafts for the past few weeks and even had some input in the language, but it wasn't my place to tell anybody about it. That's no way to run a public safety complex in the city of Norwich. Either everybody's on the team or nobody's on the team. And that's what's best for the individual needing the service, is a strong team working together rather than driving this wedge between what the volunteers didn't do, what the paid department did do. I'm done.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
No.
Alderman Neuendorf?
No.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
No.
That's 4-3.
The ordinance passes on a vote of 4 to 3.
Number 2, an ordinance repealing section 8-18 of the Norwich Code of Ordinances and replacing it with an amended section 8-18.
At this time, I'd ask for a motion to bring it to the floor, please.
So moved.
Pro Tem, and then followed by a second by Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Pro Tem.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So, this, again, will be short. I'll wait. So, I think the key takeaway, based on what you heard on the previous ordinance, is this, that this particular member of the council and of the committee isn't interested in what the chiefs or anybody else for that matter has to say, and that could not be further from the truth. If you take the time, and it is public record, to read the city manager's reports to public safety on the fire chiefs meetings over the last 24 months, you will see exactly the reason why I pushed forward on these ordinances. When it comes to involving the public safety complex, I will tell you that the run cards was an issue and has been an issue for the last 18 months. It was on our agenda at public safety every month for those 18 months. And each time when I said, fire chiefs, do we have anything to report about run cards? And I was there to listen, and I heard crickets. The fact of the matter is, some changes are collaborative and some changes need to be pushed forward. And this particular change needed to be pushed forward. And I felt it was my responsibility to you to be the person to push. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? I will only say that I'll be opposing this. However, I did take a look at the fire study again last week. I spent an afternoon going through it again. And the passage of this ordinance takes place, I expect to see 3 vehicles removed from Central, because that's what that fire study calls for. So I look forward to seeing it implemented as soon as possible, Mr. Public Safety Chairman. Call the roll.
I'm sorry, I still have my second.
The roll is called.
Alderman Wilson?
I appeal the ruling of the chair. I move to repeal the ruling of the chair. I have a second.
Sir, you don't ask that. You don't chair these meetings. Remember where you are, please. Alderman Wilson, you're seconding the motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
No.
Alderman Neuendorf?
No.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
No.
It's 4 to 3.
Motion passes 4 to 3. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I would only say, Mayor, that I'm disappointed at the adversarial nature that you are bringing to both of these issues. And I find it interesting, and the public should be made aware of the fact that you pick and choose which issues should be followed to the letter of the study and which issues should be the providence of the fire chiefs. Because on automatic aid, the study's recommendation is that the paid department would roll on every single emergency call. That is certainly not what the ordinance says. That is not what we asked the chiefs to begin to frame for us. So which side of this issue are you on, Mayor? I mean, we're getting down in too many levels down into the weeds, but I'm really very disappointed in the fact that you pick and choose your arguments to suit your political agenda versus what's in the best interest of the city. And I've had about enough of it. Thank you very much. I yield the floor.
Thank you. I believe in including people, and I believe in transparency. You chose a different path. You deliberately left the 5 chiefs out of the discussion on the draft of the ordinance. That's the difference between you and I. You had an opportunity to embrace the administrative policy that the city manager had with the chief's assistants put in place. We would have had 6 months. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Each month, they could have come and in their reports to you as the chair of public safety, you could have worked with them in an open public discussion how it's going. But you chose a path that was very narrow and left them out of the discussion. That was your decision. Just like it was your decision not to include members of this council, that you had to monopolize the time with a presentation. That's not being transparent. It's not necessary. I would love, and I look forward when all 7 members, who's ever sitting up here, will vote on an automatic aid policy, but it must include the input of all 6 chiefs, not just one. Alderman Wilson.
So keeping on the topic, I just want to, I want to move this along because we're belaboring the point. The only thing that I'm going to say is, you know, it's not a secret. I won't be sitting here much longer. But whoever sits here, I think, regardless of that moving forward, has an obligation, and it's not picking sides when it comes to the second ordinance, putting together a product that is pleasing not only to the council, but the members of this community when it comes to what apparatuses we get. But I think, and I have faith in our chiefs, the city manager, and fleet maintenance, who else is going to be a part of these discussions, that we do what's right as far as the scheduling with that. We look at, you know, the replacement, what that looks like, but even furthermore, keep in mind the differences that each house has. You know, I think that's something that we all know. Each house has a little different size and all of those things. But I think us collaboratively working on it, we move beyond this discontent and all of those things from whatever transpires tonight, and we still have an obligation to move forward and work for the city. So that's what I ask, you know, as we move forward. I'm not going to be, of course, sitting in this seat, but I think we owe it to the people of this community to continue putting differences aside and moving forward, regardless of what happened tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
No.
Alderman Neuendorf?
No.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
No.
That's a 4-3, please.
Ordinance is adopted on a 4-3 vote.
Public hearing. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Norwich, creating a business master plan district.
I'm going to declare that hearing to be open, and there's some, I need to explain a couple quick things. One, there's a presentation that's going to take place right now, brief presentation, similar to the one that was heard at the public meeting at the church. Now, the council members were not permitted to be part of that, and that's because of the public hearing process and freedom of information and stuff like that, and this is a zoning matter. Tonight, we're acting as the zoning board of the city of Norwich. And in that responsibility, we couldn't attend that. In order to benefit the members who are here, the presentation will, I hope, reinforce the information that was shared at that time, but it will be shared with the council as well, and we have to vote on this matter later on. So at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Kevin Brown to come to the podium, and I believe he has 2 other parties. They're going to give this presentation about this proposal in the zone change so that everyone here can hear the information. I'm sorry. Now, also, that was the second part. There are letters that came to us from the Commission on the City Plan, neighboring towns, the Council of Governments as well. They have to be read into the public record. So I'm going to defer now to the city clerk. I did open it. Yeah.
Honorable Mayor and all the persons of the Council of the City of Norwich, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, ordinance creating business master plan district, An ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Norwich, accompanying the zoning ordinance of the city of Norwich by changing those tracts or parcels of land known as 527 Scotland Road, 253 Laurel Lane, 207 Laurel Lane Rear, 432 Canterbury Turnpike, Bromley Lane, 180 Laurel Lane, 300 Canterbury Turnpike Rear, 431 Canterbury Turnpike, 431 Canterbury Turnpike Rear, 461 Canterbury Turnpike, 83 Taffel Ockham Road, 97 Taffel Ockham Road, 105 Taffel Ockham Road, Taffel Ockham Road 111, Taffel Ockham Road 16, School Avenue, as shown on a certain map entitled Zoning Location Survey, Zoning Map Amendment prepared for the Norwich Community Development Corporation, Taffel Ockham Road, Canterbury Turnpike, Old Canterbury Turnpike, Lola Lane, and the intersection 95, Norwich, Connecticut, Boundaries LLC, dated August 22nd, scale 1 inch equals 200 feet, sheet 2 of 2 and 1 of 2. That the following map of the city of Norwich, accompanying the zoning ordinance of the city of Norwich, be and hereby the same be amended so that the tracts or parcels of land showing on the above stated map to be changed from GC to PDD, as the case may be, to BMPD. Legal descriptions attached hereto. Purpose of the change. The purpose of establishing a master plan district, which is a floating zone, which is established by approval of the master plan, is to create a new business park on approximately 384 acres of land comprising of assemblage of 17 parcels of land. The 17 parcels are presently zoned either PDD or GC, and the present business park serving the city has virtually no more space available to provide opportunities for new business. Creating a new business park will enable Norwich to attract businesses within these uses set forth in the BMPD, which will generate employment opportunities, generate real estate and personal property taxes, and utility revenue for the expansion of electric and gas services in the business park. The Commission on the City Plan at its November 15, 2022 hybrid regular meeting reviewed the above reference referral. Seated were Frank Manfredi, Les King, Michael Lahan, Kathy Wazika, and Ella Miles. After considerable discussion and consideration, Michael Lahan made a motion to send a forwardable recommendation to the City Council on the basis that the applicant has met the regulations as existing in ZR Section 3-11, but strongly urges the City Council to review more carefully the regulations of Section 3-11 to make more clear requirements of the master plan that are ambiguous, search of signage, lighting, parking, etc. Reason, conformity with the Plan of Conservation and Development. The motion was seconded by Les King. In favor, Frank Manfredi, Les King, Michael Lahan. In opposition, Ella Miles and Kathy Wazika. The motion passes 3-2. Frank Manfredi, chairman. The second one from the Town of Lisbon. Subject referral on the proposed amendment for the City of Norwich zoning map to add business master plan district governed by the master plan in accordance with the City of Norwich zoning regulations, Section 311. Dear Ms. Rhodes, I am writing in response to your referral regarding the proposed amendment to the City of Norwich zoning map to add the business master plan district governed by the master plan in accordance with the City of Norwich zoning regulation, Section 3-11. Please be advised that the Lisbon Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed your letter and accompanying material at their November 1st, 2022 meeting. Based on the review of information submitted, the Lisbon Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to send this letter to letter of no intermunicipal impact. If you have any questions, please contact Michael J. Murphy, Town Planner, 860-885-8678. Sincerely, Robert Adams, Chairman. And the third one. Southeastern Council of Governments, dear Ms. Rhodes, I am writing in response to the zoning map amendment application for the City of Norwich. The application was received on October 26, 2022. The application was referred to this agency pursuant to Section 8-3 small b of the Connecticut General Statutes. The application seeks to establish a business master plan district, which is a floating zone to be established by approval of the master plan. The existing properties associated with the project are currently zoned planned development, which is PDD, or general commercial, GC. The application includes a master plan and is supported by a benefit cost analysis and a traffic analysis study and the market study. Based on the review of the material provided, I have determined that the proposed amendment is not likely to have a significant intermunicipal impact. If you have any questions, contact me at 860-889-2324. Sincerely, Nicole Haggerty, Planner.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Kevin Brown, President of NCDC at 66 Franklin Street. I'm joined by the Counsel for NCDC, Attorney Mark Block, and Mr. Jeff Board, our project engineer from Bowler Engineering. I'm just going to take a second, and forgive me, City Clerk, but I'm going to summarize everything you just heard and say we're going to turn this into this from a zoning standpoint, all right? Everything that is GC and PDD, general commercial and proposed development district, into this master plan overlay that we are proposing. That's what all of that language is really about at the end of the day. From the outset, I want to make it clear that this is simply a zoning change to support a conceptual plan to bring businesses, jobs, and tax revenue to the city of Norwich. It is not a request to authorize a specific end-user development plan, which would come later. Ultimately, if an investment is made by a private developer in a portion or all of this business master plan district, those detailed development plans would have to come back before this body for ultimate approval. And on that note, it's important to point out that this change that we're proposing tonight, as I pointed out with that board, actually restricts potential uses within those two current zones, allowing fewer authorized uses in the actual business master plan district than are actually currently allowed under the general commercial and PDD zones that exist today. Even more importantly, and I cannot overemphasize this enough, this evening's request is a planning step. You're approving a conceptual plan that allows us to market and entice future development and compel federal government and state and private industry to invest subsequently in this project, subsequent to this planning step. And this planning step costs $0. It's not a step that costs the Norwich taxpayers a dime, and it's not a step that creates a series of ungoverned steps going forward that you lose control of. Instead, it unlocks the door to the business development possibilities that would otherwise not just wander into Norwich, Connecticut and say, hey, what do you got for us? We are creating the conditions. If there's any cost, it's the cost of inaction. Advanced CT, which is the state's economic development outreach arm, has currently listed this parcel in its top prime development sites on its short list for the site identification and readiness program that's used to shop business development opportunities for the state of Connecticut. If you decide to take a pass on this zoning change, we end up with a much less attractive parcel, probably get dropped from that advanced CT list, and advanced CT will then shop any inbound opportunities to the state of Connecticut off to the other four parcels in East Hartford, Windsor, Wallingford, and Newtown. Ultimately, what you face is a decision to approve the plan for the roadbed and utility infrastructure that would service this conceptual plan, which is, again, contingent on our ability to ultimately secure federal and private infrastructure investment. This provides you with sufficient flexibility today and future control going forward. This request tonight does not pre-decide city spending on the site before we secure that federal or private infrastructure spending. Conversely, not approving this amendment makes our efforts to compel federal and private investment all the more difficult by demonstrating a lack of commitment here at the municipality level. If this city shows that it is hesitant to commit to a zoning approval, then we are asking developers up front to come to town recognizing that there will be months and dollars added to going through that timeline to get zoned inside of this area. Instead, we can choose to market this site as shovel-ready, and we're that much more likely to entice user and private investment and succeed in our request to seek federal and state grants to support this development. In other words, this zoning change is not a risky build it and they will come request. This is the first step in a measured approach that has already been preceded by a full year of market assessments, benefit cost analysis, engineering studies, and environmental studies. For those concerned about environmental impacts, it's important that you know that after months of study and site surveys, we've received approvals within the last 2 weeks from the State Historical Preservation Office, known as SHPO, and the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, known as DEEP. And as you'll hear in a moment, we've taken into account the Commission on the City Plan's concerns about height, light, and sound, and all will be in compliance with Norwich Code. For those concerned about traffic impacts, I can only reiterate that one of the primary purposes of the arterial roadway that you see on the master plan is to alleviate those very concerns. With dedicated ingress and egress from the business park that does not require the use of the local roads by commercial vehicle traffic, and in fact, uses traffic engineered solutions to deny access to those local neighborhood roads. Without a shovel-ready status or fully entitled or fully permitted status, developers and business will take a pass on Norwich. They'll go elsewhere. And with them goes the potential for growth to the grand list and the associated net public benefit of real estate and property taxes, jobs, and utility revenues. Municipal permitting and our approval is the last step to being shovel-ready, and I believe we've taken all of the appropriate steps to meet the zoning commission requirements and be sensitive to and in compliance with the city's plan on conservation and development. I'll now be followed by Attorney Block and Mr. Board, who will detail that compliance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Mark Block. I'm counsel of Norwich Community Development Corporation. I have an office at 138 Main Street. Unfortunately, I'm in the position of presenting the technical aspects of this application together with Mr. Board. Because this is an application for zone change, taking a 30,000-foot view of this plan is not something that we can do and legally pass this application. We need to meet certain thresholds that the ordinance requires in order to have a valid and binding and legal zoning ordinance. So Mr. Board and I will present those technical aspects to you. Now, without duplicating Mr. Brown's 30,000-foot view of this, we're here this evening to present the council acting in its capacity as the zoning authority of the city of Norwich, a proposed change of the zone map amendment, a map amendment and master plan for an assemblage of properties identified in our application and as described by the city clerk in her reading of the application into the record. It's to establish an overlay zone known as the Business Master Plan District. The properties which are shown on the master plan were put under contract by Norwich Community Development Corporation back in 2019, including 2 parcels of land which known on Bromley Lane, which had been conveyed to NCDC by the city of Norwich. The properties are shown on the preliminary master plan prepared by Bowler and which has been permitted as part of our application, submitted as part of our application, and is displayed as amendment on the board that you see and with Exhibit H that's before you. I should note that we submitted a number of exhibits to the city clerk before the opening of this hearing that are part of your packet. They're Exhibits H through M, I believe. So if you want to make reference to those as part of your review of this application. The properties comprise approximately 384 acres, as has been stated, and the land extends from Taffville-Ockham Road on the east to Laurel Lane on the west. The properties were identified by NCDC as the largest undeveloped assemblage and tract of land within the city of Norwich, and provided the city of Norwich with an opportunity for future development, creation of employment, increase of tax and utility revenue, and that is the development which is consistent with the plan of conservation and development. In order to accomplish our goal of development of this property for the benefit of the city of Norwich, NCDC proposed and the city council approved an amendment to the Code of Ordinance creating an overlay zone known as the Business Master Plan District, and the council did that in its capacity as the city council. This application creates the Business Master Plan District that was contemplated when the Commission on the City Plan approved and the City Council unanimously voted to pass Ordinance 1794 on April 19, 2021, creating Section 311 of the Norwich zoning ordinances, under which we file our application that's before you this evening. Subsequently, NCDC retained Bowler Engineering to assist in the design and permitting of the Business Master Plan District. That permitting included applying for approval from the Inland Wetlands Commission, which on June 16, 2022, approved the wetlands permit for the master plan being presented this evening. On September 16, 2022, NCDC filed with the city clerk an application which requests that the zoning authority approve the following. One, the rezone of the area comprising those properties identified in the application and shown on the map that has been presented to you. A zoning map amendment creating the Business Master Plan District. And three, approval of the master plan as presented as a concept plan and specifically approving the roadway as shown on the plan. By approving this plan, you are approving the roadway as shown on the plan. The roadway has been reviewed by the Director of Public Works and the city and engineer, which have provided comments on the proposed road, and it has also been presented to other agencies in the normal review of roadway design. This roadway has been designed to city standards. As required by regulation and statute, we have sent written notice to all property owners within 150 feet of the boundaries of the zone and submitted proof of mailing to the city clerk. We have posted signs noticing the zone change and this hearing in 10 prominent locations along the roads bordering the properties within the zone change area and certified this to the city clerk. I should note that also, although the ordinance, the statute, only requires, when it speaks of one sign, in consultation with the planning director, because of the scope of the area that comprises this district, we posted 10 signs, and I provided certification of that to the city clerk with copies of all 10 signs, their location, and the date of posting. As required, this application was referred to the Commission on the City Plan for its review and recommendation, and at its meeting on November 15th, the CCP provided its favorable recommendation, which was read into the record this evening. That finding is that the plan conforms with the Plan of Conservation and Development, but it included certain recommendations that the council review Section 3.11 to make clearer some requirements of the master plan, as the regulation may have been ambiguous as to 6 certain specific areas. The CCP recommendation was preceded by a review by an independent third-party reviewer, Mr. Donald Poland of the firm of Goldman & York. Mr. Poland, while finding that the Business Master Plan District was consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development, cited 6 design specifications which he believed required further clarification in the plan. These areas are building height, minimum setbacks, signage, perimeter buffers, parking standards, and lighting. While we believe that the ordinance wasn't necessarily ambiguous, we recognize that these 6 areas are areas that are valid areas to be addressed by the master plan. And in order to address those 6 areas, we have prepared exhibits which Mr. Board will review this evening and are addressed in the exhibits which you have before you. We propose that these 6 areas be included in the master plan as part of a condition of approval. So what we're looking for this tonight is to take the master plan that has been submitted, to add these clarifications to it, so that we will then submit to you, after we hope your approval, one final master plan incorporating all of these clarifications. So we have marked as exhibits H and J, which contain tables containing bulk requirements. We have dealt with buffer requirements, setbacks, and parking standards. There is an exhibit L that you have, which are proposed parking standards, which we would like incorporated as part of the ordinance and the master plan. Now I'd like to ask Mr. Board to describe the tables that have been included in the exhibits, and he'll include in his discussion some stormwater management, site development, erosion and sediment control issues, traffic, utilities, and signage. So I'll turn this over to Mr. Board.
Thank you, Mark. For the record, my name is Jeff Board, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Bowler Engineering, located at 65 LaSalle Road in West Hartford, Connecticut. And for the purposes of the presentation, and everybody in the room here, north is to the top of the page. I'm not sure if you guys can see my hand or not, but just to kind of orient you, to the east of the site, you're bordered by Route 97. To the south of the site, you're bordered by 395, Interstate 395. To the west, you're bordered by Lawler Lane. And then Canterbury Turnpike runs right through the middle and bisects the property here. So overall, what we are proposing is 7,700 linear feet of roadway from Route 97 over to Lawler Lane. That roadway, as Mark and Kevin had alluded to, we did receive local wetlands approval and had worked closely with city staff in addressing several comments and rounds of comments, really, as we went through that inland wetland process to incorporate a lot of positive design changes that we feel are represented here on the application before you this evening. The roadway cross-section is compliant with city standards. It consists of 11-foot wide travel lanes, 4-foot paved shoulders, 3-foot wide gravel strips, and a 10-foot wide permeable pavement multi-use trail. And part of Mr. Poland's review letter that we had gone through, and it's important in this application, is that section 3.11. So to Mark's point, we did want to provide clarification this evening on this master plan. So to do so, we prepared this exhibit, which is before you as Exhibit J. And all this is a blow-up of one of those particular buildings where we actually prepared a zoning analysis table for the proposed bulk requirements that we are asking for this evening. So section 3.11.5.1 requires a minimum lot area of 100 acres, and we are at 384 acres. It requires road frontage along an arterial road, which we are providing with the roadway that was approved through inland wetlands. It has to be serviced by adequate public utilities, which we are serviced by public utilities from Norwich Public Utilities, and we have coordinated with that agency in our initial discussions for the layout of utilities within the roadway. We're asking for a maximum building height in this zone of 80 feet. We're asking for minimum front yard, side yard, and rear yard setbacks of 20 feet. We're asking for a minimum landscape buffer of 20 feet, consisting of a 20-foot wide landscape berm that's 4 feet in height with a 6-foot privacy fence anywhere where we're butting residential property. And then with regards to parking, and given the BMPD, it's a flexible zone looking to attract business, and as the buildings and layouts shown on the master plan were prepared for schematic purposes only, the parking ratios are subject to CCP review upon submission of individual site plans or zoning authority review as applicable. So because we don't know what those end users are, We have addressed that with language on the zoning analysis table. And at the time any one of these sites comes before you, we'll be back in here with detailed site design plans of each particular lot to ensure adequate parking exists for the end user, which is what section 3.11 states. With regards to signage, we did submit an exhibit. It'd be consistent with section 3.11.5.3. That supplemental signage description was provided as part of our supplemental documents, and size and appearance of said signs were also provided. With regards to lighting, the proposed lights, which have been provided by NPU, they're required on their arterial roadway. They're dark sky compliant LED fixtures. They're full cutoff fixtures, which are consistent with section 3.11.5.5. And these same fixtures will be utilized not only on the roadway, but as future developments proceed in the future, those same lights will be utilized on each individual project here. Drainage was a big deal as we went through local inland wetlands, and as you've heard a couple times now, what we had permitted through inland wetlands was a real detailed set of civil engineering documents for the roadway. The drainage is in accordance to the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. We had implemented several design changes in concert with city staff to even further enhance what was already on our plans and provide some natural best management practices throughout the length of the roadway. And again, once they do come back for individual lots, we will reanalyze stormwater at that time on an individual basis for each one of these. So the roadway is consistent with the design standards set forth not only in the city, but all the state guidelines as well. Erosion and sediment control is consistent with the 2002 guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control in the state of Connecticut. We had provided detailed plans of what that looks like with silt fence, inlet protection, limits of disturbance, and that was part of the entitlement package that we had submitted for review. And then with regards to traffic, I did want to highlight a few key areas. And before I go further, there was a neighborhood meeting that took place. And up till now, I've been providing clarifications. One thing that we heard from that neighborhood meeting was regarding the access onto Lawler Lane. And if you guys could see my hand here, we had heard that access was a bit of an issue at the time. So what we have proposed to do, and we are asking that the council accept this as an amendment to this application, is we had provided a cul-de-sac and basically dead-ended the road here and provided an emergency gated access with a Knox box onto Lawler Lane. If it were ever decided that they wanted to move forward and make that physical connection, we would be back before the council to basically show you what those improvements would look like. And we would ask that that be accepted as part of the amended application this evening. So that's the only change really on what you have in your packages this evening. Is really the only thing that has changed since then. And we also removed one of the driveways that had been on Canterbury Turnpike from one of the future schematic layouts and took that off and then pulled the parking away from Canterbury, which we felt was a positive change coming out of that meeting as well. I'll flip through. I believe this was entered into evidence as Exhibit I, which is basically a highway access exhibit. It had been previously discussed that we had plans for a new highway on and off ramp, both northbound and southbound on Interstate 395. It's important to note that once we do get there, there will be proposed signals at both the northbound ramp and then the approach and on to 395 south in this location here. We will be coordinating with the Federal Highway Administration and local DOT once we get through city entitlements for the construction and permitting of a new on and off ramp with an associated roundabout. In the interim, while that permitting process is underway, we do have a solution that basically takes the existing ramps here now where you exit from 97 and onto the highway, and with some minor curb geometry modifications, there can be a temporary signal in place here that would basically create a situation that would allow it to function as it does today while the permits are being sought for the new on and off ramps. We also heard concerns about the roundabout and the connection at Canterbury Turnpike in this location here. We were careful in designing the layout of the roundabout, and as much as you can't prohibit trucks or vehicles from turning one way or another because you can't put up physical barriers in a roundabout, the geometry is such that and given the fact that it's a limited access roadway, trucks exiting and entering off of 395 really would be going straight through, which is what they were designed to do. And the curb design going north and south onto Canterbury were designed in such a way that a truck of that size would have a difficult time making that maneuver. So that was another thing that we had incorporated into the design. And one of the benefits of this from a traffic standpoint is the fact that it is limited access, and we have this new on and off ramp right here. And even if that's not in place and we're utilizing that existing from a temporary standpoint, there really only ever is reason for vehicular traffic accessing these lots to utilize Canterbury or utilize the proposed road back to the highway. So basically, as Kevin alluded to, it really does take trips off of the local roadway network, which is what the traffic engineer had concluded in his report as well. So the traffic consultant did prepare and summarized and concluded that the planned project will not create a significant impact to the adjacent roadway system, and provided a pretty detailed traffic report to indicate the same. So with that, I was going to turn it back over to Mark Block for closing, and afterwards I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. It should be noted that it is intended that the Business Master Plan District would be established as a common interest community, which would be managed by NCDC, so that the first level of review for such things as signage would be through NCDC. Then, in conjunction with CCP, all signs would also need to be permitted by the appropriate department in the city. Any approvals that we get from the board this evening should be conditioned upon inclusion of the sign regulation, which is included as Exhibit L. And should the council approve this application, we'd ask that this updated plan and the appropriate exhibits as clarification be submitted on an approved plan and including the signage and lighting additions. Now, I'd like to bring to the council's attention some additional matters that we need in order to proceed technically in this matter. The application is for approval of a zone change and establishment of a business master plan district. It is not an approval to build any structure. All that this approval will do is establish the district and approve the road system through the proposed business park. Any future construction and development of any individual site which shows on that plan, and there are a number of buildings showing and hypothetical or planned parcels, any future construction will be in accordance with an individual site plan presented to the Commission on the City Plan, in accordance with the site plan regulations, in accordance with the terms of this ordinance, and road construction would only be done when funding for the road is in place. This is not an application to build anything. It's not an application to construct a road. It's an application only to have this plan approved for the purposes of establishing this district and facilitating the obtaining of funding and grants necessary to bring this business park to fruition. The property is already zoned in part general commercial and PDD, which allows certain commercial, industrial, and residential uses as permitted. The uses permitted in the BMPD are in part different and more restrictive and less in number than the permitted uses, and more restrictive than the permitted uses in the GC and the PDD. And we've submitted Exhibit M, which Mr. Brown displayed as this board.
In front of the microphone, please. All comments.
Excuse me?
All comments with the microphone, please.
I'm sorry. So this board shows the number of permitted uses in yellow in the GC and PDD, and the restricted number of uses in green in the Business Master Plan District. So this is targeted development for business purposes, no residential uses, and no other similar kinds of commercial uses, big box stores, those kinds of things. That's not in here. Most importantly, any major or material changes to the master plan would then go back to the council as the zoning authority, which retains authority to approve these changes under the new section 3.11.1.2. Any substantial and material changes shall be subject to the council's sole discretion and shall be subject to the same procedural and public hearing requirements as this original zone change application. Further, any development will be subject to the specific business master plan district requirements. Now, in approving this master plan, the council needs to make certain determinations. One, that the proposed uses are in conformity with the goals and objectives of the POCD. And to read from Mr. Poland's report, which says the proposed zone changes from PPD, which should be PDD, and GC to the BMPD is consistent with Norwich's comprehensive plan of zoning. The primary reason for this finding, the zone change being consistent with a comprehensive plan of zoning, is that the existing PDD and GC zoning districts already allow for commercial and industrial use. The secondary reason for this finding is that the proposed business master plan district is a floating zone that was conceptualized for use in this general location. So we believe that we satisfy this requirement, that we're in conformance to the comprehensive plan of development. We have amended our statement of purpose of the business master plan district in order to comply with the ordinance specifying the current uses allowed in the PDD and GC districts, which we would ask be included within the business master plan district. And in the amended statement of purpose, it says, which is part of the application, in addition to the permitted uses as specified in 3.11.5.6, the applicant requests that the following uses be permitted in the underlying, which are permitted in the underlying GC and PDD's districts: business and corporate professional offices, healthcare, technology, research industries, technology research and development, government buildings and facilities, car wash facilities as part of a truck stop, clinical and medical offices, and public utilities facilities. These are uses allowed in the current zoning that we're asking be added to the new overlay zone. Now, 3.11.1.3 lists certain factors that need to be considered by the council in rendering its decision. A, you have to find that this conforms with the POCD. B, you need to find and determine that there's a positive impact in the city, which we presented as increased tax revenue, utility revenue, and employment opportunities. And you need to consider the compatibility with the neighboring areas, which I think we've presented adequate evidence of. With that background, we would ask that the council, sitting as a zoning authority, approve this application. We've submitted the master plan narrative. Mr. Board went through all of the requirements of the ordinance that we have met. In addition to the master plan narrative, we submitted supporting documents, including a cost-benefit analysis prepared by UConn, a DOT census tract analysis for the city of Norwich, an aerial of the exit 75 interchange for informational purposes, which is also submitted as an exhibit for this evening, a Cushman and Wakefield industrial building analysis, a flex building prototypical design, a traffic analysis by CDM Associates, which Mr. Board alluded to, and an RKG marketing study. We have submitted an existing conditions plan. We've submitted the concept plan that Mr. Board reviewed, which now contains information that satisfies the requirements of the ordinance. We meet the bulk requirements. So we believe that with these submissions and the documents that are part of our application, that we've met all of the standards for this authority to approve this business master plan district. A couple of things I should add. As far as the architecture goes, we're not asking, we haven't submitted any architectural renderings, and Section 3.11.5.2 defers that requirement to the Commission on its City Plan in its approval during the site plan process. Signage and parking, as Mr. Board alluded to, would like as part of the site plan process also, where it would be more appropriate than arriving at proposed signage and parking as part of a conceptual plan. So we'd ask that the approval be conditioned on those matters going to the CCP. Lighting would be as approved by NPU, and all the bulk requirements we've submitted as part of our exhibits this evening, and we'd ask that they be admitted as additional changes to the master plan. So in conclusion, I believe we've met all your requirements, and I would just remind you that, again, because I know there's been a lot of concern about this plan being resulting in immediate construction, increased traffic immediately. All of this is to come to the future when individual site plans are approved, when we have funding for a roadway, and it's likely we'll be back before, and maybe back before, this authority for changes to the master plan that might be dictated by future events. We'll open this up for questions, should members of the council have any.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to turn to the public who demonstrated extreme patience, and I thank you for that. The evidence that they submitted was required that it be submitted at this time. But again, I thank you for the indulgence. The first person that I have on page 1 listed is Ilana Sherman. Thank you for that information. Lillian Yaton. Canterbury Turnpike is the address listed. Charles Witt, 511 Canterbury.
Excuse me, I'm a little sore. I've been sitting here a long time. I stand before you. My name's Charles Witt. I live at 511 Canterbury Turnpike, and my house will abut this property. I stand against this, as we have an industrial park in Norwich that everybody says is full. But I drive through there, and I see properties up there, and I am told that businesses don't want them because the buildings are too old. There's a baseball stadium up there that's underutilized. There's all kinds of housing up there. This is an industrial park. It's not a residential allotment. So I watch eagles fly in my yard. I fly hawks in my yard. I have foxes. I have wolves. I have everything. And the economic, and they tell me that the studies are going to take care of this, and it's not. So, like I said, I stand in against this, and hopefully you will be too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Janet Witt. Janet Witt, do you wish to speak, please? Oh, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jeanette Witt. I am the wife of Charles Witt, and I live at the same address. I'd just like to add, with all due respect, I would like to ask you members, do you or do you know anyone that lives near this or going to live near this park? No. Okay. I would urge you and plead with you to please You've got all of the information in front of you. Take it and drive through these areas. You're more than welcome to come down my driveway, and so you can see how close the abutment would be. Thank you.
Thank you. Leon Baldwin? It's 33 Old Canterbury Turnpike.
My name is Leon Baldwin. I live at 35 Old Canterbury Turnpike, which is just in the general vicinity. I'm highly against this. They say the traffic won't be disturbed, but it always is. Always when they build industrial parks and areas, property values and traffic flow and that are always a problem. And the one point I'd like to ask is why did this not go up to voter referendum instead of you people deciding the fate of all people in Norwich? I'm done, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tiffany Baldwin?
Hi, my name is Tiffany Baldwin, married to Leon Baldwin at 35 Old Canterbury Turnpike. We are actually just off the bottom of this map. In many of our area, there are lots of wildlife. We see deer, we see all kinds of things like that. Saying that there's not going to be an impact, there will be an impact, whether it be that the animals are moving off of that land onto other land, also causing other traffic issues. I work as a warehouse worker. I don't get home till 2 o'clock in the morning, which means my last truck leaves my yard at 1:30 the latest, which means anybody in that general vicinity will be hearing the trucks go. We'll be hearing the people driving through there. We'll be seeing that traffic, and that's only if it's a two shift thing. If it's 3 shifts, you have people going in and out of that area at all given times, whether it be trucks, whether it be employees, whether it be anything like that. And seeing a tractor trailer go through any type of roundabout is scary for anybody, whether you've been driving a tractor trailer for 30 odd years or whether you just learned. If there's a corner there, it is tough for them to get through. I can see with these roundabouts and seeing tractor trailers is turnovers. And knowing that I've known my drivers for 5 years and how much they curse roundabouts. And you're gonna have them go through 2 of them to get into this park. That in itself is gonna cause anybody who has any trucks to not wanna go into this area. And that's just from my point as a shipping clerk knowing my drivers. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Richard Feeney. Richard Feeney. Holly Watson. Is Holly Watson here? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you don't have to, thank you. Okay. Did she sign up? I will call back to you, I will. John Rosk, 161 McKinley Avenue. Thank you. Don Brine. Okay. Ed Piscatelli? Oh, I'm sorry.
Edie Piscatelli from 44 Wales Road.
Thank
And
you.
you'll have to apologize. My notification letter, my certified letter, was the first I even heard of this project. I wasn't aware of your earlier meetings or anything. I was just made aware with this. So I'm not even sure exactly which one of these properties is going to be sitting right behind my house, but I think it's like number 9 or something. But I do have some concerns with this. Like the other gentleman, I took the time to drive through our existing industrial park tonight, came across 13 properties that were empty, So that surprised me when the letter that I read on the news, and I'm very nervous, so I apologize, said that it was full and we needed more space for people. And then I'm looking at the area, and it's true. We have beavers, we have all kinds of animals. And then I was reading through old ordinances and plans from you guys, from like 1989 forward, talking about saving the farmland, the open space, and all this stuff. And pretty much you guys are eliminating the last space available. So I'm a little confused, and again, I'm very nervous, so I apologize. I'm like stuttering. I am concerned about the valuation of my property. I'm concerned about the increase in traffic, the noise and pollution, wear and tear on the roads. I'm concerned very much for safety risk. It's right by a school area, all kinds of things. It's a residential neighborhood, but I keep hearing how the zoning is for commercial projects and stuff. I'm not surprised by that because the city does change zoning areas constantly. Most of us have wells up there. I'm worried about runoff and contamination. I didn't hear anything about what they're going to do with that. The plan it's not consistent with the current surrounding area. I don't know how they say it is. I don't know any other residential areas that they suddenly start building commercial buildings in the middle of. You know, we've had projects where, and to the best of my knowledge, I have not heard that we've had these major businesses come along and say, we want to set up shop in Norwich. Please give us a place to do so. We'll sign a contract. We'll do whatever. You know, we want to be in Norwich. I've seen many businesses leave Norwich. So when they say it's going to attract, it kind of reminds me of other projects we do where we think it's going to turn out great, like the marina or other projects, and it doesn't turn out so great. So building it in the hopes that they'll come and take up that space, we've done that. We've been down that road so many times in this town. So I'm thoroughly against this. I hope I still have time to maybe write a letter that's not, you know, will be more professional and not as nervous as I am. But I'm hoping that you guys aren't going to take any action on this tonight, that you'll take time to review it, go out and examine the area, consider all the possibilities, and give us a little bit more time to fight it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Jacobson.
Hi, I'm Sue Jacobson, 256 Laurel Lane. I'm going to speak for my husband, James Barry, and my brother-in-law, Jean-Paul Getty. We all live in the same house. So I'm not for this at all. I have a lot of concerns, and as the previous woman, I'm nervous as well, which I think is expected. I am concerned about the what if and what's going to come. Put in this road, and then we don't have anybody lined up for it, and who's going to be responsible for the upkeep of the road, the insurance for the road? The animals is a huge concern for me. I actually moved to Norwich, the outskirts of Norwich, because of the spiritual feel to it, the nature, the wildlife. Just everything that is here is going to be totally destroyed. Everything that I'm here for is going to be totally destroyed by having this business park across the street from me. I'm at 256. I think one address is 253. So I'm concerned about where are the animals going to go? How many more accidents are we going to have because the animals have no place to go? How many children are going to be involved in that? Being able to take care of our children educationally. We barely can take care of the children we have now. How are we going to take care of this influx of children if we do get businesses established? I had so many things that I wanted to say, and now that I'm up here, I can't think of them all, but I think my biggest concern is my taxes, and I know that at the last meeting, it said there would be tax breaks that would go over a matter of years for someone that came in here, so we're like years in the future before we're going to feel any benefits to this. So for us sitting here, we're going to carry the burden. Hopefully our children will feel the benefit from it, but it's going to be very difficult for us. And the roads are very unsafe through this period, through this section. as it is, increase the traffic. We don't have sidewalks, we don't, people travel way too fast. It's very scary. And if we increase that traffic, it's just going to be that much worse. And I don't know, I could probably come up with a lot, but I think I've said enough for now. Thank you. My niece walked in with me, and I didn't know what I was signing. We didn't know, it wasn't clearly marked that this is a sign-up sheet to speak. And we were both planning on speaking, but she didn't get on the paper because I just signed my name. We didn't realize. So I don't know if she'll be able to have the opportunity to come up. That's Erica Caradillo.
Thank you. The next person that is listed here is Butch Gelty. It is, okay, thank you. Mark Perkins.
Mark Perkins, 81 Lawler Lane. So my stance on this is kind of irrelevant, I think, because I think you as the zoning authority, I think you're going to pass it. But I don't think the city needs to ruin the surrounding neighborhoods to put a business park in place. There's ways around this. So as planning matures on the BNP itself, there are three things I came here for tonight. Number one, and I already got it, I don't want an arterial road entering Lawler Lane onto the west side. Thank you. Number two, maximum buffer space for the abutting properties. I know it's been discussed, it's been addressed, but I don't know, I kind of like the idea of a giant arborvitae's around my property, especially if I was abutting this. I mean, you know, truck stops are noisy, 80-foot buildings are noisy, so at every new vote, make sure you consider the buffer space, because this is going to come up time and time again for everything that goes in, okay? And number three, and most important, and I think we, that is our NCDC partners, neighborhood planning, you as the city council, and the public need to examine how to keep commercial traffic off of the secondary roads. So the traffic studies I've seen in your package, they talk about level of service, A through D is good, F is bad. Well, okay, I mean, but it doesn't take into consideration the army of cube vans, UPS trucks, and other commercial vehicles that will probably ascend upon Scotland Road, Lawler Lane, and especially Canterbury Turnpike. Now, if there was a magic bridge over Canterbury Turnpike, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but that's not in the funding, I'm sure. So in the future, I'm actually going to propose a commercial-free zone, meaning commercial vehicles may not enter or exit the Artillery Road. If they want to get into the park, they've got to go on Route 97 or I-93, 95. So you haven't seen the last of me. I will be here at every meeting, at every turn, and in good ways. I mean, not just to be a jerk, but I'll work with NCDC to propose what's best for the city and what's best for us, because again, if you're going to build a business park, you don't have to ruin the neighborhoods around it. Agree? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chase Corrigan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chase Cochran. I live at 465 Canterbury Turnpike, so I'm directly affected by this development due to M&A Holdings owning 461 Canterbury Turnpike, which is right to the left of me, and them also owning the 60-something acres of the sand pitch, which is directly behind me. So a couple concerns I have personally is, I know you guys say tons of people are reaching out to the city to develop in Norwich. And that may be, but from my personal experience, myself and my family, we own a commercial property over on Providence Street in Taffville, which is a pretty popular area. And it took over 5 years to rent that 1,600 square foot commercial building. I personally reached out to NCD a couple times on the matter. I got no support, I got no tenants. Eventually, over time, I was able to rent the property myself and finally recoup someone in there. But during that time, I was paying property taxes on that building, not getting any rent in. So that's a couple personal issues there. Also, the boundaries and the buffering. You guys are talking about a 4-foot-high berm with a 6-foot-high fence. So we're looking at 10 feet. But you want to build 80-foot tall buildings. So I'm going to be looking at 70 feet above that fence. So that would be my concern. I know arborvitaes were mentioned. I also do landscaping. Arborvitaes could grow up to 30, 40 feet. It's still not going to block a monstrous metal building, but it probably would be better. I think the buffers need to be bigger. I don't think 20 feet is fair to any of the residents on Canterbury Turnpike, Lawler Lane, Taffockham Road. Living in Norwich, so my house was built in 1976. My grandfather built that house in 1976. I currently live in it. My mother lives next door to me at 467 Canterbury Turnpike. Between the two of us, we own 2.5 acres on Canterbury Turnpike. We've been there for a very long time. My grandfather and my grandmother actually used to own 461 Canterbury Turnpike. That's where their house was originally before they sold it off. So we're very passionate about our area. And unfortunately, which it might disappoint some of you, when I tell a lot of my coworkers, you know, they say, where do you live? A lot of them live down on the coast. I say Norwich, and it's always, Norwich? Yeah, Norwich. So then they come to my house and they go, oh, this is Norwich? I said, yeah, this is Norwich. There's a lot of nice areas. I think all of Norwich is nice, but there's a lot of nice areas, some nicer than others, unfortunately. So now we're looking at destroying the nicer, quiet area of Norwich. Currently, with no industrial park there, I can hear 395 traffic from my house, inside my house. My house is all brick, by the way, so it's pretty well insulated, and I can hear 395. So now to put an industrial park right behind me, we'll be hearing traffic. There'll probably be first, second, third shifts, I would imagine. I currently have moms riding their bicycles with their children on the back up and down Canterbury Turnpike. People walking the dogs, carrying the children in wagons, and now you're gonna put a roundabout on Canterbury Turnpike. Currently, the police department can't even control the speed on Canterbury Turnpike. It's unfortunate. I've seen vehicles go anywhere from 80 to 100 miles an hour down that street. And I've called up the police department myself, and they send officers out, and they patrol it for a little bit, and they try their best, and I get they're understaffed, and I fully support the police department. But Canterbury Turnpike is an issue in general. It is a straightaway from Norwich Town all the way to Ockham. And I have seen vehicles do 100 miles an hour coming over that hill. I understand most of you might not live in that area or from that area, so you guys wouldn't see this. You'd be passing through, maybe even caught yourself speeding on that street a little bit. And I get it. I get people could go over a little bit. But so I'm sure all of you have your decision kind of probably made up prior to hearing people's personal opinions or their stories. But I would like you to take into consideration what we'd be agreeing upon too if we allow this to get developed. And I'm not saying we can't utilize that land for anything, but there needs to be restrictions. You need to take the taxpayers' opinions into consideration. Currently on my house, I'm paying $7,300 a year in property taxes. My mom lives next door. She's paying another $7,000 in property taxes. Am I paying that money to be looking at an 80-foot tall metal building? I'll just sell and go to Lisbon. Currently, I'm sending my children to private school, so I'm not using Norwich's public school system because that's a complete disappointment, but I won't get into that. So what is keeping me in Norwich? I could sell my house, go to Lisbon. So I'll allow the council to see what will keep me in Norwich. But I need your support. Everyone else here tonight needs your support to take the restrictions into consideration. And I work for a big employer in southeastern Connecticut, and we currently can't get employees. And they are hiring by the thousands. So I get it's bringing jobs into the area, but if we don't have residential housing in the area for people to live, who's going to work these jobs? You need both. You just don't need industry. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Corey Corcoran? You all set, thank you. Ron Sentier? Nicole Sentier?
Okay, I didn't realize I was signing up
Oh.
to speak, but I will.
Thank you.
I'm concerned because I'm at 452 Canterbury Turnpike. I am going to be very close. I take it less than 150 feet from some of this. I bought there over 50 years ago. At this point in my life, I'm not ready to see the construction. I'm not ready to be sitting in my house looking at a parking area for 175 cars, which was on a map that I've seen. And then if I look the other way, I'm gonna see the roundabout. That's not why I went there. I'm very interested in what the buffer's gonna be, and I don't mean a 6-foot fence. I wanna know how far away they're gonna stay from me. And I think a lot of the people that live in that area, it's a wonderful community. I've been there, like I said, 50 years. I want to end my life there, but I won't stay with all this. So I'm against it for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Yarrington?
Hello, I'm Lisa Yarrington. I live at 77 White Plains Road, so I technically don't have an abutment to this, but I'm probably 100 feet from Scotland Road. So I've been paying close attention to this. I've watched all the meetings online. I've come to all the meetings, and I just have a few things to say. Because I've been a resident of Norwich for pretty much my whole life. I don't look as old as I am. I'm almost 40, so I promise I'm not talking like 10 years here. And what I'm seeing, the city is failing its residents on a municipal level, and it's really disappointing. The city's planning commission is the perfect example. They were told by the consultant the city hired that the map and plans they currently have are not good enough, that they are very important and specific details, excuse me, and it is lacking. The planning commission completely disregarded what the consultant had to say and passed it anyway. So what was the point of hiring him if what he had to say and contribute was not going to be valued or considered at all? Not even to mention Kathy, somebody on the commission, stated multiple times how this was not good enough, that they're doing the people a disservice and there needs to be more time and effort put into this, only to be dismissed by everyone. We're being told that this business park will not cost the taxpayers any money, that it will rely on grants for the funding. At this point, the city was already denied the grant once. So are we just supposed to hope that the city gets this funding? What happens when you're denied again? Where will that leave us? How will you move forward getting the funding needed without costing the taxpayers more money? Now let's just say that you're able to get this money. We were told that you're going to offer the businesses that come in a 70% tax break to start, and then every year lower it by 10%. So over 7 years, what will happen and keep these businesses from moving out? How will you keep the business park from ending up just like the one we have now, completely underutilized? Last, have you made any effort to do any research on how this will affect the property value of the many residents in this area? Between the new road you want to put in and the properties that will now be directly abutted, I fail to see how this will not devalue so many. I can say confidently that almost nobody wants this. Please reconsider for the sake of all of us who love our quiet little corner of Norwich. That's why we live here. Don't ruin it.
Thank you. Renee Bebo?
Hi, I'm Renee Bebo of 155 Baltic Road. I'd like to address what Mr. Brown had to say about the NDD stating that the truck traffic, which I believe another gentleman brought up, will not be able to enter the Canterbury Road area. However, the worker cars, the people who are going to work in this park, will be able to enter and exit on Canterbury Turnpike. So if this all develops as you hope it will develop, that's hundreds of cars that are going to be on this road, on this residential road with, as they said, people walking their dogs, their children, the wagons, you know. Therefore, there will be an impact to this residential area. And then the good people of Norwich have come here today to be heard about what's happening in their backyards and the proposed business park. This is the last quiet area of Norwich, and these people bought their homes because of what the area had to offer. Now, I know that you, the elected city government, cannot be stopped by a few citizens. You will do as you see fit for all the citizens of the city of Norwich. But these citizens here are also the ones who stood by you and elected you to the positions you now hold. It's time for you, as their elected officials, to reciprocate and stand by them and do the right thing. Send the proposal back to the Planning Commission and tell them to finish their job and not just kick the can down the road.
Thank you. The last signature I have is not legible, but it says 152 Taffville. As far as the street address, it's either Michael or Miriam, but I cannot read the last name. Oh, absolutely. I was just going through those who did sign up. Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to ask, if you have not had a chance to speak, I will recognize you and I'll go back and forth and into the middle. So, gentleman that just spoke to me in the back, again, please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, so my name is Steve Browning, and I live at 671 Scotland Road, which is evidently pretty close to that 500,000 foot square imagined warehouse. So this is not an abstract issue for us. This area of property has kind of an interesting history. In the 1960s, it was one of the candidates for the Norwich Town dump, which was instead moved up onto Rogers Road. In the 1980s, somewhere around there, a developer came in, spent some money, was going to build the biggest golf course condo complex in the history of the world. That didn't go through. The one thing that that developer did do was that he had a plan where the houses were going to be in the center and the golf course was going to be the outside, which would have taken care of a lot of the residents' concerns. So I think one of the things we have to recognize here is that this is not an area where nobody lives. There are already neighborhoods with their characters, and building a big industrial park and inserting it into this area is not compatible with these pre-existing areas. We didn't move out to the edge of a pre-existing industrial park. It's going to get landed on us, and we didn't sign up for that. I understand Norwich has tax issues. I also understand that 4 specific neighborhoods are going to take this right on the chin. And the way off between declining property values and people wanting to move out of these select areas versus what you could potentially make over a 20-year period. I mean, I have not worked out all the math, but this is not a simple home run. So other concerns, obviously drainage. I can tell you that where one of the parking areas and warehouses is set up, that water is going to run off across our property over a mile into the Shetucket River. Okay, so that's not me making up, that's me wading across that field every fall when we have heavy rains. So I think one of the things is, this is my final point, this is being sort of portrayed as, oh my gosh, we've got to change the zoning right now or we'll forever lose this opportunity. I'm more concerned about the fact that it sounds like there was a 3-2 vote on the Planning Commission. That is a great concern. This should be a home run. Should be, hey, everybody agreed with the plan, let's move forward. So I would support voting against this, even to the point where, you know, we build in more green space or we take it back to the Planning Commission, because as I said before, you're not writing on a blank canvas. There are pre-existing neighborhoods there. And I wasn't alive or I can't remember when the previous industrial park was built, but I suspect it had a lot less neighborhoods around it. So that's just all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman right here in front, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Scott Gladstone, 252 Old Canterbury Turnpike. And what I would urge everyone is to take a open approach at this. I commend the NCDC for doing their diligence, working to be fiscally responsible. So I would encourage the neighbors with their concerns and you as council acting in the zoning capacity to collaboratively work together for the common good of not only businesses, not only the residents, but come together as a unified front and realize that what the group has done is to earmark Norwich to be on the map. This isn't being developed tomorrow. What they're asking us to do is to consider this so that when businesses are approaching the state, when businesses are looking for growth, that Norwich is considered. If it's not considered, we're simply going to stop growth. And as we all know, with the economy, with inflation, being fiscally responsible and protecting business growth and the neighbors surrounding that large area, I think is definitely viable, and I would vote in favor of it, and I would urge everyone to work collaboratively towards a common goal to help everyone in the city of Norwich. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, please, Mrs. Filbert.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Philbrook, and I live in Norwich Town, Connecticut. I want to start my comments by saying that I have never been more ashamed or disgusted to say that I live in the city of Norwich. You start your council meetings with a prayer where you ask God to guide you in your decisions to represent the people that have elected you. Some of you listen, and some of you fly in the face of decency. This city screams poverty and desperation. I live in Norwich Town. I am fortunate to live in a house that was built in 1734 in the very area that was the seat of the Norwich beginnings. Not too many years ago, we had a zoning change so that Burger King could come to historic Norwich Town. It was going to be the second coming. It was going to be the Messiah. It was going to save us all. Those buildings sit vacant with a chain link fence around them. Bank of America is closed. Dunkin' Donuts is gone. The dry cleaners is gone. I, too, took a ride through the industrial park today because I like to have a somewhat semblance of what is going on here. Nonprofit after nonprofit after nonprofit after nonprofit. You've got the Thames River Printing. How many years ago did they go out of business? I counted 5 cars there. S&S, 5, 6 cars. Sheffield, 5 or 6 cars. Let's not fool ourselves. NCDC has a job to do. They are under, it's my understanding, and maybe somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I doubt it because there is no communication to the citizens of this city. They can ask most of you over and over again, and you ignore them because you don't want to hear what you don't agree with. Now I've lost my train of thought, which happens when you're 80. Oh, NCDC, I looked, before I came here tonight, I looked at their website because I needed to have a little refresher course. And I just happened to click on their agendas, and their agenda for December 7th, there are several items on it, but one of them is to authorize Mr. Brown as their representative to enter into a loan agreement for $3.55 million with Bravos Lending, LLC. They are under a mandate. They have a purchase and sale. Do they have to execute this by a certain date? They've already spent $575,000 on this little project. I've said this time and time again, and I will look every single one of you in the face because I made a decision to come here, and I get emotional about this. I know I'm going to die here. That was not my plan. I have a quality of life issue too. I'm entitled, just like every other person, to have a quality of life issue. You have a responsibility to the citizens of this city to listen, but you don't. If 100 people cut up and say, please don't do that, and then you do it anyway, how are we supposed to have trust in you? This does not need to be done tonight other than for the very fact, and please, if I'm wrong, tell me, that NCD's feet are to the fire. If you read a prior article, it says that the original business park was sort of a haste makes waste, repent at leisure situation, that they were under the gun to make a decision, so they did. I don't know anymore. I made a joke with the firemen. I said, I'm glad that there are medics in the building because I'm probably going to have a stroke. And I say that in all honesty. You cause me such anxiety. I came here for a reason. I had great expectations. And now my neighborhood, my beautiful historic neighborhood, is a crap hole. There's no other, we have absentee slum landlords. We have unkept properties. And that's but so I ask you, these people that got up and said they bought their homes, they built their lives in a specific area because they wanted the tranquility, the peace, the quiet, the flora, the fauna. You know, people say, oh, you're just doing those, not in my backyard. You're damn right, not in my backyard. You have to respect. Do you want an 80-foot building in your backyard with light pollution, noise? And if you do, then invite NCDC to come into your neighborhood and build this. So I know you won't do it for me. I know that because I know that a good portion of you up there can't stand me. You've made it perfectly clear. But I don't really care because this is my home. And I have a right, just like every other person in this audience, to get up and express their opinion. So I'm still waiting for the hotel in Yantic. I'm still waiting for the development on Main Street that's under a mandate that has to be concluded by. So you have to prove to me, you have to reestablish my trust in you that these things are for the betterment of everyone. But as other people said, this is a chance for you to fish or cut bait. You can authorize this tonight. The deal will be done. The zoning changes will have been made. NCDC will be able to say, okay, we got our approval. Now we can get our 3.55 million, and then we can move forward. Or you can say, wait. We need more information. We need to find out the whole picture. So again, as I say, don't do it for me. Do it for the citizens that elected you. Because quite frankly, this is a fluid situation. You can be here today and gone tomorrow, but unfortunately, once the deal is made, the deal is done. Thank you.
Thank you. In front here, please. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Jan Swain. I live at 506 Canterbury Turnpike. I've lived there maybe 20, 25 years, so I'm a fairly newcomer to the Canterbury Turnpike. But I've lived there long enough to know that Canterbury Turnpike is the connection between Norwich Town and Arkham, as somebody else said. My biggest thrill in going over Canterbury Turnpike from Norwich Town is to drive exactly 30 miles an hour, and I live at that other end. So when I pull into my driveway, I've probably got about 5 or 6 cars behind me that did pay attention and did not try to pass me, as some have. But as they go, they honk their horn, they flick their finger, and I just smile and wave. On the other hand, it's a bitch living on Canterbury Turnpike with traffic. When I was working, and I'm now retired, I'd have to go down Canterbury Turnpike to the first stop sign, which is the little 5 corners there where there's a Chinese restaurant. And at that time when I was working, there were a lot of kids that came from over in the Versailles area to go to school at the high school, and they drove like a bat out of hell. And it was very fortunate that nobody got clipped while they were doing this. I used to walk on Canterbury Turnpike. I don't anymore. I used to enjoy walking on Canterbury Turnpike. I don't anymore. And if anybody thinks that it's a picnic, it's not. Having just seen this map tonight for the first time, and I wish there had been handouts of it, I'm looking at it, and you're going to put this little kind of road type sort of thing going up and around and everything else, and coming up there on Lawler Lane. Well, also on Lawler Lane, I believe there's a school. So do you really want that kind of traffic going by the school at any time during the daytime? And I don't think the neighbors would want it going through their area at nighttime either. I am so opposed to this thing going through, because no matter what you put in there, if people are coming from another area, they're not going to come down 97 to turn onto that little road to go up and around. They're going to do Canterbury Turnpike. That's what they're going to do. And I don't care whether they come down one way or the other way, they're going to eventually go by my house. And they're not going to go by slowly at 30 miles an hour. So before you really think of doing it, go outside your own house and look at what the speed limit is. And try to find out how many cars go by at your speed limit. Because if you think that they do go by, then you're wrong. There's nobody that goes the speed limit in Norwich. They all just go like a bat out of hell. And Canterbury Turnpike is my favorite place to live since I've been around, and I hope to live there a long time. And the only way I'm going to leave is when they put me in a bag and put me out in a hearse or an ambulance or whatever. But that's the only time I'm leaving Canterbury Turnpike. So I really wish you would turn this down at this time. There needs to be a lot more that you can present to us. I don't believe that turnaround is going to do a damn bit of good. I don't think that side road is going to do any good. I don't think ruining people's property is going to do any good. And I just really want to live in my peaceful little community without all this other hassle. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Good evening. My name is Erica Caradillo, and I live at 538 Scotland Road, the old Wilcox Sawmill property. So like someone else said, I'll try not to get emotional, but I can't guarantee it. Someone else said, my husband and I were born and raised in Westerly, and when we came up to my aunt's house in, that area of Scotland Road, Lawler Lane, that property came up for sale, and we're like, oh my God, it's like a dream. And, we have a pond. I can't even tell you the countless hours, blood, sweat, and tears of, refurbishing and, bringing back to life a home that was built in 1750. Not to mention all the work on the property. But it's such a shame. And I don't envy you in your decision that you have to make, because it's so confusing. There are so many layers upon layers and, examples and just exhibits, and the terminology, the wording that's used, it's so confusing some of it must be confusing to you guys. I'm a well-educated person, and, some of it's confusing to me. But one thing I would like to ask you. Now, this is what the property as it sits now can be used for. So this is what they want it changed to. So my question is, now there's an amendment to bring some of these into this section to be approved or denied. So what numbers, what articles of this are to be put into this?
During the public hearing process, there is not a back and forth. We're here to listen to you and your concerns, and I assure you we are hearing you.
So do you know which ones are from here are going to be listed here?
It is those that are listed on the board, and only those listed on the board in green.
So I misunderstood then. So there's 6 articles from the left on the existing zoning as of November of 2022. There are 6 articles in this yellow that are proposed to be part of the package tonight.
Yes.
Yes, and so the committee is aware, and you know exactly which 6 are going to be on this that you're voting on?
Those that were stated during the presentation by those presenting the evidence, those that were listed.
So I can't ask you what they are?
Again, we don't go back and forth. We listen
that's
to your
why I'm asking.
testimony. If the ordinance is then presented to us after everyone has had a chance to speak tonight, then we start to have a discussion back and forth, and that is all in public. It could also be that this public hearing is extended beyond tonight, not closed off, to take further comment and to make the strongest effort possible to make sure your questions are answered.
Okay.
That is also possible.
All right. I'll take that. So I listened for 80-plus minutes of the city council when you were wearing those hats. Tell us how you wanted to work together and that you were going to work for the best interests of the citizens and that you were completely transparent. And I do not feel, maybe I could be completely alone, but I don't feel that there was any transparency to this whole thing that's been going on for God knows how long, and we're just finding out about it like a few weeks ago. But anyway, I just hope that my family is against it, and I hope that having so many questions unanswered, that you decide to continue this and send it back to the drawing board. Whether I'm allowed to ask a question like that or not, I can bet that nobody could just ramble off the 6 things that we're voting on tonight that are going to now be in the package. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Sam.
Sam Browning, 671 Scotland Road, Norwich, Connecticut. Yes, you have a set of twins in the audience. But instead of giving you a broad thematic lecture, I'm just going to make some related points. The first thing is that on a quick correction on the our current business park. The reason it remains full is because the city council has made the decision not to do what Bill Nash had said and pull off the Band-Aid and get rid of the current baseball stadium, which is sitting on 50 acres of flat, level, slightly muddy land, but which could be cleared for probably, Mel Wick told me, less than $1 million, which works out to maybe $20,000 per acre. It's a self-inflicted injury, but you could get 50 acres of developable property if you didn't renew the lease, which is coming up to you guys in March. That would be a choice. Second of all, I am actually more sympathetic than probably 90% of people in the audience to your tax issues, because I once sat where you do, and I know you cannot develop residential real estate which will pay tax expenses, because each child in the Norwich school system costs a minimum of $14,000 a year, if not up. That's without any special needs, and there are very few residential properties in this city which pay that amount on a single unit. Matter of fact, there may not be any. So I'm sympathetic, more so than other people. But there are some outstanding issues. I think that it would be a good idea. I mean, this is a situation where we got to do it by the end of the year. We got to do it by the end of the year. This project has been going on for years. They've been paying option money to the current owners since at least 2019, 2018, somewhere in there. That's when I was initially in some meetings back when this was going to be a data center. That didn't work out. I understand that people proposing it were somewhat problematic, but it's been a while. But I think that the road that you could take is to send it back to the Commission on City Planning, get the other 2 members on board, go forward with a better proposal, or at least clear up some of these issues. One of the issues which I don't understand, and the proper way is for me to ask someone up there to consider asking it to them, is the 80 feet on the buildings. I know that there's a limit in Norwich for new buildings of 7 stories if you're in certain districts. But this is a matter of, okay, where did that number come from? That would be particularly enlightening to know. Because depending on how close you are to the boundary line, then it either can be set back further from the boundary line, not loom over a house, or it can be right next to the boundary line with like 20, 30, 40 feet away, and then someone comes, takes a look up and goes like that each morning. That can be finessed, it can be worked on. But I'm just saying that that's a relevant issue. I mean, if you go to our current business park, for example, the only two buildings I can think of which would be over 70 or 80 feet are the baseball stadium and one nonprofit housing entity, which I think Bill Stanley got into there, which started our long tradition of putting anything but businesses into our current business park. I'm trying to be humorous, it's late in the evening. So I would ask you to look at those details and try to work with the people here. I mean, I don't think it's an either or, but I also think that we're looking at something where we're being told, okay, you've got to do this by the end of December or else, whereas maybe you have more leeway. I mean, I can tell you as a real estate lawyer who's done some small commercial things, you can go back to lenders and you can work with them if they're serious. So I would ask you to try to accommodate both interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
My name's Margie Sharon, and I have a business on 61 Taffelockham Road. I didn't come here tonight to expect to have any comments, but I am a business owner, and I feel like, unfortunately, I struggled for years and years and years. My business has been in business for 25 years, and I tried for many and many, all of them, 25 years. And I'm looking this way because you weren't there yet. But you were, Peter, because you know how many years I fought and tried and walked and looked and drove and attempted to build my business in Norwich. And I couldn't get in. I was blocked at every turn. And it was disheartening, but not unsuccessful, because as the audience knows, if they know where I am, I'm there now. It took 25 years. It was awful. I got no tax breaks. I'm paying a lot of money for taxes in Norwich. I got no incentives, and I got no hand-holding. I got doors shut and doors shut and doors shut. I'm happy I'm where I am. I'm over the moon, and I feel unfortunate to the residents in Norwich that I've almost let you down. I didn't mean to be the gateway business to this project. But when I built on School Street, my business is on Taffelockham Road. When I built there, that whole golf course had already been in the past. That was already there. I feel like I'm almost apologizing to the residents. But I will tell you, from my perspective as a business, you're trying to put this in the most beautiful area that there is in Norwich. If you haven't been around that reservoir, I have deer and fox in the back of my property on the ball field that is very underutilized and just happily sitting there as a quiet little ball field where my father-in-law, 90 years old, played ball for the first time. And I'm happy that I have it in the backyard of the building. But to expand, and from a business standpoint, my standpoint is I have families, thousands of children, thousands each week that come in with parents in their car seats, driving safely, I hope, to the facility to take their swim lessons. When you expand School Street, it's already tragic to get on and off 95 sometimes, coming northbound or southbound, just to get onto Taffelockham Road. To increase that and then put trucks and workers and business people on and off that road. I built there because it was quiet. I didn't build in some places. I did try to get into the industrial park many, many times, but I couldn't. I was blocked. But unfortunately, that's in the past. I'm happy I'm where I am now. But now I face the threat of other businesses coming in, which I'm not opposed to business, clearly, but I have families with children and babies in car seats. And when we were at Salt Rock in Baltic, where I live, for 30 years, I've been on Plain Hill. So I can tell you and the residents that the traffic will expand. I'm a resident of Plain Hill, and the businesses and the trucks and the tractor trailers and the workers and everybody that has the brewing label on it, pick a brewing company that might be in Norwich, drive up and down Plain Hill Road. They do not enter from Franklin. They do not enter from the bottom of the industrial park where they're supposed to enter. They go up Plain Hill Road. All of the residents on Plain Hill, Norwich, and Baltic were told that that was not going to affect them. It does. There are constant traffic on Plain Hill Road. And I, going home to Plain Hill Road, am always following a truck or a worker that turns onto Stott Avenue all the time. Business trucks are there, even though that's not even supposed to be an access to the park, but they take it. And honestly, the families that I serve are now going to be in danger from the increased traffic flow coming in and out of that area. And it is a quiet area. And if you don't go to that area much in Norwich, it is treacherous, driving sometimes. I love the reservoir. I love that area. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's beautiful. If you've never been to where the reservoir is or walked it, they're not speaking untruths. There are eagles right over the river, and I'm saying Yannick River, sorry, but shaking and nervous. But it's just going to entirely change the landscape. And I live on Plain Hill where there used to be cow fields and cow corn and fields, and now it's residential and houses and being built. This is a travesty to the residents to put, I don't want to even say other commercial businesses because I am one. We're a single shift, we're not noisy, we're not loud, we're not smelly, and we're in and out on regular working hours, and we're serving families of our area and beyond. But my point is, the expansion of this is going to increase the traffic flow from all areas, even roads that this unfortunate business park is not even listed. And I'm glad I fought so hard to get into Norwich. I'm happy I'm where I am, but this needs to be reconsidered or shelved for future discussion and other people to know. I didn't know all of this until I got the letter in the mail either. So unfortunately, I'm not a resident of Norwich, but as a business owner, I would urge you to reconsider the types of businesses and the limits that you're putting into people's backyards and the nature and the scope of the landscape of Norwich that this is going to affect. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, person way in back with a hand up. Again, please state your name and address for the record.
Ian Lavoie, 392 Canterbury Turnpike. So, I am one of those gentlemen that lives on Canterbury Turnpike that take my young children out on the back of my bike and ride down the street. I am very concerned about this business park. I'm also one of the gentlemen that works down the street at the old business park, at some of the buildings that they are currently employed in. And that business park is lucky to have the amount of people that they do in there currently. Luck of the draw. And it seems like this new business park idea is being held up on a whim and a prayer and a hope that they can get funding for this business park. I understand that the city of Norwich needs money, and a business park seems like a very good idea. But I don't think that it's the correct area. And I understand that this is the last developing area that you can do this in, but I don't think this is the right choice. I'm concerned for my children's safety when I ride my bicycle with them on the back of it. I'm concerned for their safety when my significant other just walks down the street with them in the double stroller. I'm concerned for them playing in my front yard because of the traffic, and this will 100% get worse if this goes through. I have family in environmental consulting agencies, and I'm very concerned. And I understand that you guys, I'm sure, have taken the time to do your research. But I think that there can be more done. I think that there can be more done to preserve this area. Because this is one of the reasons I moved to this area of Norwich in the first place. It reminded me of the woods. It reminded me of the home that I grew up in. And it'll be very upsetting to me if this does go through and all you're left with is an auxiliary road going through with nobody to fill up any of the space and empty lots. That's all.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Donald Supernaut. I live at 43 Wales Road, and my property abuts what they want to do. Now, I worked on construction for 40 years. I worked in buildings like these. They need heavy equipment to unload and load trucks. There's more grease and oil and diesel fuel that comes off of these and off of that road from the traffic that will be with these big trucks. There's nothing saying that they can't unload a truck at 1 or 2 in the morning, too. I've been in these buildings. That's going to affect these residents who are right against these buildings. And waking up in the morning with an 80-foot building in your backyard is not going to be very good. Now, behind my house, there's a lot of wetlands. And there's an unbelievable amount of animals that are there. They come actually on my property all the time. Now, those wetlands are going to be affected big time by this oil, grease, and the road itself is going to have salts on it in the winter. And I seriously doubt the money that is made through this process, if they even get people to come here, will pay for the upkeep of these roads that Norwich is going to have to pay for and everything else. Now, where I used to live in Mohegan Park, the Hunters Road exit, you can, if you go up Hunters Road towards the park, all the houses on the right, there was 100 acres or more behind that property. That was bought by the city of Norwich, and now it's being used for the residents to enjoy. And there's no reason why we couldn't do that again with this property, because in the end, I'm telling you, Norwich is going to pay money for this. Nothing, these guys are telling you they're going to do something for nothing. That's not true. You don't get anything for nothing. Norwich, in the end, will wind up paying for a lot of this roads, the upkeep, and to try to get these people to come here. Now, again, I worked on construction, so I know. I'll give you an example. In 1969, when I started, steel was made in this country. Everything came on the job as steel. Now, it's marked Japan, Canada, Indonesia. It's all made where there's cheaper labor and still brought here, and they make more money. How are you going to get jobs here without offering people? It's going to be low-paying jobs, and you're going to have to give them tax incentive to even come here. Again, it's going to cost Norwich. In the end, this is going to burn Norwich. The residents don't deserve this, because tons of them abut their house. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Please raise your hand. Yes, sir.
My name is Bruce McCaddy. I live on 20
Hi, Bruce.
How are you doing? This is sort of being shoved down everybody's throat. I know they've been working on it for a while, but nowhere in any part of this area has anybody ever put an 8-story building. And you're trying to take a residential area that has paid taxes. I've been in my house 34 years, I think it is, and I've lived in Norwich town for 67 years. You're taking the last area of wildlife in this whole area, other than Mohegan Park, and you're gonna try to turn it into a downtown New London. And if that's what you're trying to do to the city of Norwich, then I think the residents have to decide where they want to move to next. Because you're never going to recover the tax dollars that you're going to lose. When you take my house at $12,000 a year and you want to take that and cut it in half because you put a factory in my backyard, yeah, no. People will be moving as fast as they can out of that area, and you're not going to recover people moving in going, oh yeah, sure, I don't mind paying taxes and having a 6-story building behind my house. Everything on this concept is wrong. The city's going to have to pay to put sidewalks down Canterbury Turnpike, which they can't afford. They're going to have to widen Scotland Road. They're going to have to widen Lawler Lane, because every time somebody punches in a GPS, how do I get quicker to Norwich Town? It's going to come down those roads. And if you have 3,000 employees, and you have 3,000 cars going down those roads at high speeds because the police can't enforce. You guys put a sign on K Street to slow people down. Hasn't worked. The cops are never up there at all. I mean, I haven't seen a cop in my neighborhood in probably 3 or 4 weeks. They're not going to be able to enforce it. What are you going to do to the damage of Scotland Road, Canterbury Turnpike, Old Canterbury Turnpike? How are you going to pay the people back that's paid to live in this city for 30, 40 years by deciding you're going to turn this into a junk, basically a junk construction site, and then hope that some big manufacturer's going to come in and make up the difference of what you're going to lose from people? Just doesn't make any sense. And it's being shoved down your throat because they have to pay for it by the end of the month. I think it should be put to a town vote. And I think you should actually sit down and figure out what's actually going to happen in this park, not just put down imaginary buildings and hope that that's what's going to be built. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that have not? Yes. Okay, and then the young lady behind you. And then, okay.
Yeah, my name's Reiner Beckman. I live at 210 Old Canterbury Turnpike. I feel exactly the same way all of these people do. You're basically destroying the neighborhood. My grandmother just died in June. I have this decision to make. Do I want to stay? Well, guess what? I don't want to stay now. I mean, I kind of have to because I have other neighbors that I've lived next to for years that I feel like I have to take care of because they're older. I don't want to bail on them. But now you got an industrial park coming at me. And do you guys have any idea, when these people say the animals that live in the area, do you know what type of animals they are? I see bluebirds, pileated woodpeckers, bald eagles, osprey. The list goes on and on. You never know what you're going to see next. And once you start paving over half of it, guess what? It's gone. So yeah, they don't care. They don't live here. This is a feather in their caps. That's what it is for them. This is just elevating themselves because they don't give a damn. Do you?
Thank you.
Good evening. Jill Zuccardi, 213 West Town Street. I grew up in Norwich. I love Norwich. I recently moved back here, and I've been trying to educate myself about what's going on in the town. And I see Norwich, a lot of renewal, but also parts of it that have died. And I've read everything about this business park. I read all the attachments. I've listened to everybody here tonight, and I have a few things I want to say. Nobody's building anything right now. This is an ordinance to amend the zoning. It already was a PDD and a CD, commercial district. They didn't buy their houses bordering a nature preserve. That's one point.
Excuse me, we're not going to start that, please. Let everyone have their moment, please.
I'm a nature lover, and I recognize the concerns, and I hope, as the process moves forward, that everybody's voice is heard, that any development that winds up happening, because again, I'm not hearing that any buildings are being built anytime soon. I hope that all the concerns are heard. I will probably be up here as well, talking about some of the concerns I've heard tonight, because some of them sound really legitimate, but they're speculative right now. So I urge the council to adopt the ordinance.
Thank you. Someone else on the right side? I thought they had a hand up. No? Okay, back to the middle. Please, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Okay, Jess Quay. I live at 321 Old Canterbury Turnpike, and this is just like a quick couple things that I wrote down. Next year, I will have lived in my home for a decade. I just mentioned that to my husband last night. I was like, wow, holy crap, we bought our house almost 10 years ago. I grew up in Montville. I love the woods. I love to be away from people. I can't live in Montville, though, because my husband loves NPU. So I grew up with, Eversource, and we lost power, and it was for days. And he's like, no, let's move to Norwich. They have NPU. They have NFA. Our kids, we want them to go to NFA. I'd much rather live in Montville, but anyways. That being said, my kids go to school right in our neighborhood school, which is, for lack of better terms, Moriarty. I don't want 150 more people driving by my kids' school every day. It's a nice remote area. It's a nice place, people don't just, there's no draw by Moriarty for people to be there unless you're supposed to be there. And I feel safer without all the extra traffic. I would implore to you guys to maybe put this on pause, take a deeper look. I know the mayor said something about, we could continue the conversation at another meeting. If that is to be true, I would love it if you guys could publicize it so that more people from our community could know. Because truthfully, I'm technically on the outskirts of this plan. I received no notification. I don't care if my property abuts it or not. It's the area that I travel every single day. My kids' school bus go on that road every single day. I should have been notified as well. And I think that if you did notify more people, you'd have many more people agreeing with every single other person except for this guy in the plaid shirt. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to address the council at this time? Yes, that you've already spoken. I'm looking for people who have not had a chance. Yes, sir.
My name is Paul Caradio from 538 Scotland Road, soon to buy some more property on Scotland Road. Interested in it. I'm not going to say what everybody else said. I'm here, I know you can't answer it, but I have a big question, and I just want it heard. Why do all the public people speak if they're not heard? This is my first meeting in Norwich. I've only been here for a couple of years. I've enjoyed the meeting. I enjoyed the way you run the meeting. I just hoped that when everybody in this room spoke, that they get heard, and not just for today, that they have a say in this. That's where we live, where this is going. Not where they live, and not where some of you live, I guess, either. So we are the ones that should be making a big decision on this, and I believe everybody in this room probably agrees with me. We should be making these decisions. I know we're not on the council or the zoning board, or if the council is the zoning board, I just found out, so I've never heard of that, but I just want to be heard that I live in these backyards and I want to buy more property next to me that I haven't pulled the trigger on yet because this project came up. I don't know who can answer this question, but I live at 538 Scotland Road. My street name has been mentioned. My neighbors across the street on Lower Lane's names have been mentioned. I didn't get any notice about these meetings, about this building. If I didn't have a relative on Lower Lane right on top of this project, I wouldn't have known nothing about this. Yes, I see the zoning change sign while I'm going down the road, which is unsafe on the corner of Lower Lane for me to stop and read it because I'm probably going to get rear-ended by one of these people that drive 100 miles an hour. I didn't get to read it. I'm not trying to be funny. I just want to voice that the public elected you, and there is some matters that maybe the public can help you make some decisions. If we got notices, or more people got notices, this room would be full, and we'd sit here for 4 days, and maybe you'd say, wow, those people that live all around that don't want this. What are we going to do? Just say, we don't care what they think? Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Again, anyone who has not had a chance to address the council at this time on this ordinance, I have to ask 3 times. That's the procedure. Is there anyone else like to address the council on this ordinance at this time? I'll come back in a moment. Is there a 3rd time? Is there anyone else who has not had a chance to speak to the council at this time? Okay, thank you. Yes, miss, please. No, everything must be recorded at the microphone. It's required by law. This is a formal public hearing with its own presentation.
Edie Piscatelli, 44 Wales Road. I guess I'm just questioning, if you guys are saying that this was already for commercial use before, what type of commercial use do they want to turn it into now that you have to change the zoning? Like what kind of property, what kind of buildings or businesses are you guys talking about allowing that weren't allowed before in the yellow?
Okay. I hope that question is further provided an answer. But I must also point out that there's another public hearing on a different ordinance following the conclusion of this one, and it's our requirement to go to that public hearing before the council takes any consideration on this. That has to happen this evening as well. So again, is there anyone who has not had a chance to speak at this time on this ordinance who wishes to? This is not the time. Thank you, though, Kevin. There'll be an opportunity. Is there anyone else like to speak on this ordinance at this time? Is there anyone else who has not had a chance, again, to speak at this time? I see your hand up. You have something to add? Please come forward. No, yeah, you.
I just remembered something that I wanted to say. But
Again, please, your name and address.
Erica Caradillo, 538 Scotland Road.
Thank you.
I was so terrified that I just forgot. So one of the things that I wanted to say to you was, I know it was mentioned, 47 times that this meeting is only to have you change or vote or whatever on the zoning decision. Not about building anything, not about, size of buildings, whatever. That this is only to allow for the change of the zoning as it stands. But we know what that means. And if you approve it, then we know what's coming. And there's so many ifs, like if they get funding, if this happens, if that happens, there's just so many questions. So I know that they tried to drill it to us that it's only the question of changing the zoning, but it's not only that. It's opening the biggest can of worms that our community could probably face. And so that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Again, is there anyone else who has not spoken to the council who would like to speak so at this time? So anyone who's not had a chance to speak at this time? Third request. Is there anyone else who has not had a chance to speak to the council at this time? Okay. Thank you all. At this time, I am not going to close this public hearing. I'm going to ask that the council support a motion to continue this public hearing directly to the next council meeting, which I believe is the 19th of December.
Is that a motion?
That's a request for a motion.
So
Yes.
moved. So moved.
Pro Tem and Alderwoman second, Stacy Gould. It's late. So the motion is to continue this public hearing, keep it open for further public comment at the next council meeting. And if I may take liberty, I would also like to ask that place upon us the responsibility of those advocating this change in zoning and this council to consider this change in zoning, that we do our utmost best effort to answer questions that people have raised tonight, whether it's about buffer zones, whether it's about distances and sight lines and all that other kind of stuff and environmental things. Just consider that a friendly recommendation, excuse me, to corporate counsel. Correct. And I would point out that that information has to still be shared within the public hearing process. So at the next council meeting, that information must be brought here and be put into the public record. That's the process we're trying to protect, full transparency. So we work on our homework. If you or know anyone else who hasn't had a chance to comment, that is another opportunity. That's what this motion provides. Including anyone who left who maybe got tired of waiting. And I know that happened, because I know some of the people that left personally. They would not have if they didn't have that issue or other concerns in the evening. Alderman Wilson.
Just as another maybe announcement for those that may feel shy about coming up here or just unable to make the meeting, a way where they can email their comments to either the full council, your office, just so that we have that information to consider. So maybe that might be another helpful thing for those that aren't able to attend the public hearing.
I would agree, but I'd also direct comments directly to the city clerk's office. She's the keeper of the public record. I can receive them. I will certainly get them to her, but it's best if they're received by the city clerk. I'm not trying to make your day longer. Really, I'm not. But again, it's the public hearing process. She receives official correspondence and stuff like that, just like the evidence that was submitted by the advocates tonight. That went through her office as well and to us. Again, everything must be through the public hearing process, including those discussions. So, Alderman Singh, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Is there a way from this platform we can also urge NCDC or people who are advocating for this project to hold a maybe informational session like they had it before? So there's one-to-one conversations.
One, they did do that already, but again, that would not be then part of the public hearing process, which we're leaving open, and I would advise against that for that reason. It needs to be in the public record. We have to protect that.
Okay.
Again, the recommendation of this is a change in zone and only that. Nothing's going forward beyond this. There's no money to build any roads. There's nothing waiting at the door, knocking, no one. All of those discussions will also be in the public realm at every time, and they'll have to go through every public approval level at every level, whether it's CCP, Commission on City Plan, inland wetlands, you name it. If something were to come forward, it still has to go through the public process, boards and commissions. None of that has changed. The only thing considered here is this question on the zoning change. That's it tonight. Nobody's building a thing if this were to be approved tonight, which it is not. We're going to continue the public hearing with the vote of this council.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion or question? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0 to continue.
The motion passes on a vote of 7-0. The public hearing will remain open, and we will receive further comment in 2 weeks on the 19th. And that completes the council's actions on that ordinance. If you want to go home, we won't discuss it further. No. It was, yes, it will be here. Yeah, the elevator's under repairs, but it's not complete, and I'm not going to mess up. This room works well for large people, and it's more comfortable.
Ready?
Yeah.
And number 2, an ordinance
Well,
amending
get it going.
Article... It's too loud.
Too much noise? Okay.
I mean, I can still read it, doesn't matter to me. Your choice.
Yeah. Excuse me, I would ask you to please exit the large room, continue your discussions in the hall. We have another ordinance whose public hearing we must begin. Thank you so much.
Number 2, an ordinance amending Article 7 of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances for municipal taxation for cannabis.
Yep.
Of cannabis.
Thank you. At this time, I declare the public hearing open on ordinance number 2 concerning the municipal taxation of cannabis. And at this time, I would invite anyone wishing to speak on ordinance number 2 at this time. Is there anyone? Please. Again, name and address.
Raymond Henry, 18 Rogers Road. Yeah, the cannabis thing, I was just really curious about it, is that why are we going to tax something that's already taxed by the state of Connecticut? That law passed in the early 80s, because when I was a police officer in the early 80s in the city of Hartford, when we arrested people, we also charged them with tax evasion. Why are we going to tax them? We're double taxing people. Why are we doing that? I was just curious about that. Okay? That's
Thank
all.
you.
Yep, thanks.
Try to answer that in our comments. Yes, please.
Good evening, Sheila Hayes, 382 Laurel Hill Avenue. Mike, first of all, I support the ordinance, the change to include the additional code for the taxation of the cannabis. My question that I have, and it's not a concern, a major concern, but under the expenditure section of the cannabis gross receipts for tax revenues, and there's a list of 1, 2, 3, I think there's 6, because it continues over to the next page, 6 or 7. In reading this, it's either youth, streetscape, or neighborhoods. There is one in there for formerly incarcerated, probation, or parole. Then you go back over to youth, and then some in the civic engagement in communities. What about our young adults? What about our early education, our preschool? I don't know if the statute that the Connecticut General Statutes passed limited to just this, or were these pulled out just for Norwich? And is there an opportunity, if we have to amend it at the state level, to expand it for preschool, pre-K, as well as young adults, and not just limited to youth in parole or probation for services? That's my question.
Thank you. Is there further, anyone who wishes to speak on the ordinance dealing with cannabis taxation at this time? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance number 2 at this time? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance number 2 at this time? Seeing no one else, I then declare that public hearing closed. Thank you.
Second reading in action on the above ordinance. An ordinance adding Article 7 of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances for the municipal taxation of cannabis.
At this time, I would ask members to bring this forward for motion for consideration and discussion. Alderman Singh, second Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion at this time? Alderman Wilson.
Sorry. Just to kind of piggyback on that question, I don't know if you have an answer, but is it, when it says to fund education programs, is that kind of inclusive? The question as to whether or not it pertains to pre-K and elementary?
We'll have the corporate counsel address this.
Perfect, thank you.
Josh may recall better than I do, but I think we incorporated all of the listings that were in that particular section of the general statutes as to things we could spend the money on. The statute set what categories the monies, the taxes could be used for, and I thought it was inclusive of all, but I don't have it with me, so.
Again, this mirrors the statute that was drafted by the General Assembly allowing for the cannabis industry to be here. And we are bound to follow those directives, but we'll let the corporate counsel expand. I'm sorry, comptroller expand.
Yes, we included everything that is included in the general statutes, and we also tacked on G in case they change the law later. So we automatically are allowed to spend on anything that the state later changes the law by, where it says any other purposes later approved by amendment of Connecticut General Statutes, Section 12-330 MM5.
Perfect. I just wanted, there was a question asked, and give the answer that way the public knows, just in case somebody else has the question. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. The ordinance is adopted.
Petition and communication. Number 1, report from the Commission on City Plan of the City of Norwich pursuant to Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes and Chapter 15, Section 4 of the Norwich City Charter regarding an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, creating a business master plan district.
Motion, please, to receive this report. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderwoman Berto. Roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. It is received.
Number 2, report from the Lisbon Planning and Zoning Commission regarding an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, creating a business master plan district.
A motion to receive this, please. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 3, report from Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments regarding an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Norwich, creating a business master plan district.
A motion to receive again, please. Alderman Singh, second Alderwoman Gould. Roll call.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Berto. Yes. Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf.
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia.
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes.
It's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. It is received. I'm going to recommend, in the interest of time management, that the city manager's report and its reading will be waived and that we all read it. That request came from John as well, in deference to everyone else and those still waiting.
Citizen comment on the resolution.
Thank you. Declare citizen comment on the one resolution to be open at this time. It's an item concerning the 2023 budget for the Norwich Golf Course Authority. Is there discussion? Thank you, sir.
I am Bob Maloff. I live at 1 Coit Lane. I'm a member of the Golf Course Authority. I'm also the budget chairman for the Norwich Golf Course Authority. I hope that you would see fit to approve our budget for 2023. And I guess that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
Perhaps just a little highlight, a little bit more detail for anyone here listening, please.
We're presenting a budget short of the $200,000 that we've already been appropriated through the American Rescue Plan of $1,354,104. It is an increase of about $200,000 from last year's budget, and it's primarily because of inflation, just like everything else. We kind of prided ourselves on keeping the rates down for the last 3 years, but unfortunately this year we were forced to propose a rate increase. You know, we pretty much, everything we take in from revenue goes back into the golf course. We pride ourselves on operating the golf course pretty much free and clear of the city. In general, we do, come to the city on occasion for capital improvements. But other than that, we're pretty much self-sustaining.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does anyone else like to address the council at this time on citizen comment? Anyone else like to address the council on the citizen comment? Anyone else like to address the council on citizen comment? Third and final, is anyone left here to do discussion, citizen comment? Seeing no one else, I declare citizen comment closed.
New business resolutions relative to accept the 2023 budget for the Norwich Golf Course Authority.
This time I entertain a motion on the resolution. Alderman Singh, second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Berto. Yes. Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf.
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia.
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes.
7-0.
The resolution adopted on a 7-0 vote. Alderwoman Gould.
Before you go into executive session, I just would like to remind the council that when you sit as a zoning commission, the rules are different than when you sit as a city council. You cannot have ex parte communications. You cannot talk to somebody who stops you in the street and wants to talk about the zoning issue before you. Communications, if the mayor is receiving them and they go to Betsy, they'll be made part of the record for the hearing coming up. But it's very difficult when you're in a city of this size and you know so many people not to discuss this with people outside of this room at this sort of a hearing. But please observe that, because you can be challenged later if you did have communications or conversations with people that are not part of the record here. So,
if I may, Mayor, I would suggest that it'll be difficult, but any council people that are approached should refer it to staff, either to myself or Deanna from Planning and Development, and we'll try to answer the questions they might have. That way we keep it out of the realm of, I think we'll have to explain that, because people may not understand that and think we're giving them the runaround, which we're not. We're applying the legal situation to this.
Thank you. Alderwoman Gould.
Okay, before I do this, I would like to request that I get a complete copy of Alderman DeLucia's presentation that he made tonight be made available to us within the next 12 hours, please. We were not given a complete, this is not a complete copy of the presentation that was made, and that should be made available to everyone on the council.
Thank you. Question I have for the city clerk. Do you have a copy now? Okay, the handouts.
The
They were
city clerk
distributed.
has emailed a copy of the entire presentation. It should be in your email.
You just.
Okay.
Not just sent, I just sent it to you.
Okay. We'll make every effort to see that you get that ASAP. Thank you. Okay. Alderwoman Gould, if you would, the motion.
I hereby move pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-200, subsection 6, that the members of the Norwich City Council go into an executive session to discuss the acquisition or disposition of real estate or interest in real estate when publicly regarding the site and proposal, including proposed construction, would adversely impact the price of the same as to the interest of the city, to review preliminary drafts concerning proposed development and use of the property feasibility estimates and evaluations, the council having determined that the public interest in withholding such clearly outweighs the public interest in disclosure, as well as to review commercial or financial information provided in confidence not required by statute. City Manager John Salamone. President, Norwich Community Development Corporation, Kevin Brown. Corporation Counsel, Michael Driscoll, and Comptroller Josh Pothier shall be asked to participate in, Director of Planning and Neighborhood Services, Deanna Rhodes, shall be asked to participate during all or portions of this executive session at the request of the City Council.
Is there a second? Alderman Singh. Roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson? Sorry.
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto? Oh, yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Back from executive session, let the record note that no votes were taken at this time. Is there such a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Berto, second by Alderman Wilson. Roll call on that is Wilson?
Yes.
Berto?
Yes.
Singh?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Neuendorf?
Yes.
DeLucia? Nystrom, yes. Motion passes 7-0. Entertain a motion to
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
adjourn. Gould, seconded by Berto. Wilson?
Yes.
Berto?
Yes.
Singh?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Neuendorf?
Yes.
DeLucia? Yes. Nystrom, yes. Motion to adjourn passes 7-0. Thank you all.